And
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. Judy, would you do the roll, please?
Judy Neville here, Tom Schulte. You're here. Sorry,
Here.
can you, Chris?
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks, Tom.
Amy Carroll's absent, Todd LaVieri, Michael Chen is
I'm Ruth.
coming. Chris LaBrie,
Here.
Victor Alvarez,
Here.
Maria Weingarten is. We know or we don't know, okay. Bob Hamill,
Here.
Colin Dobbin.
Here.
there. James Young, we thought was coming, but, all right, we probably should, when we have to replace Amy, we probably should replace Maria, so we will need a vote for both, Bob Hamill and Colin.
Motion, please. Chris, second.
All right,
Victor, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. Opposed? None? Okay. Okay, Coleman, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Motion to approve the minutes from our November 17th meeting. Any changes, addendum?
the change. No, good. I didn't prepare them because I was COVID, but there was one small typo. It's like, oh, here we go. But I'm gonna make a change. Playhouse Lee Farm was still allowed renovations underway with an anticipated opening in late /2/23. It's just one word. I'm gonna make that change.
okay.
Okay.
Did you reflect that on my?
I did not. I just
Okay, I'll-
reviewed them. Yeah.
Okay, is that it? Any other changes?
I have a question. So my question is in the section in the budget. The first sentence to the second paragraph reads, Mr. Barbieri and the board to further focus on capital for 1 year. I don't understand that though.
I think, because I went back and listened to it after you had asked me that, because I believe what happened was that's when Tiger was talking about some of the uncertainties. And the increasing and posting, and how I thought you had made some reference to that maybe we need to pause some of the capital projects for the next year just to get a handle on where we were at.
He used the word pause.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he
to
was-
further focus.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
That's
Right.
not what it was to potentially cause capital projects and spending depending on where we end up, given what we're gonna talk about tonight and other pressures on the budget. That's all.
so I'll make that change.
All right,
I mean, it may make sense not to, not to mention it at all. I mean, I think what you were saying, Todd, is when we get into this a little bit further, we'll be able to figure out what, if anything, we're doing.
That literally was what I was talking about.
Well,
When
but
we
the
get into
next,
budget,
but the next sentence says that. So
Yeah.
this first
it
sentence.
says pause.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris.
We'll discuss the debt at the next meeting and we will talk about it for many meetings.
Yes.
oh, yeah.
So I would make that change.
Any other questions? Okay, then a motion to approve, with those at a time, Michael.
Recording in progress.
So moved as amended.
Tom as amended, second? Second, now Victor, all in favor? Aye, opposed? None, okay. Hi, Michael. How are you? No worries. Okay, hey, James, you're over here. Yes, okay, if you want to be with here, Murray is not going to be here, that might be a little better.
Oh.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Tucker. Okay, let's move on. First one.
Good evening, Board of Finance. Good to see everyone in person. Welcome. The paper reports, I think it is spiking in other parts of Connecticut. Post Thanksgiving travel, et cetera. We're not seeing that so much in Canaan, but we are continuing to offer vaccinations and boosters and testing for warehouse. So testing in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. PCR testing in the morning and anytime you can do a once a rapid test. I hope the department has them. And we also do the booster clinics Thursdays both for vaccinations and boosters. So and also they're also offering flu shots. So that's very convenient for residents to go to Irwin. Capital projects are total winding down for the year. We have a brand new road over the library. We've had it today. It looks great. And this morning, the Board of Selectmen approved the contract for the Waveney House elevator and bathrooms. So that's moving forward. Yesterday we learned that Citadel Lab had met their goal of $2 million. Their cap-
The 1.5 is the goal.
Well, they extended their goal to $2 million. So they completed that, which is good news. And we also this morning at the Board of Selectmen approved a demo and inside work contracts with Alden Bailey, the Playoffs. So that's moving forward. And the Board of Education bids on the renovation, their renovations for Ryan. They're due next week on the 20th. The PD renovation is moving forward. The owner's rep was selected, as I mentioned, they met last week. Work with the architect, so that's moving forward. And finally, last Thursday, the Connecticut Planning Council approved the 1837 Plymouth Street cell tower and public safety tower, which will be an integral part of our public safety radio infrastructure. So, and the town council has put off to January further consideration for the proposed west side tower. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions?
The town council put off what,
So
another
again,
year? or- Oh, till
they decided
January?
not to work in September on that issue. So
Two of the quick announcements. Amy's agreed to join the pension group. Did I tell you that?
Yes.
Okay, so she'll take Michael's place. And in our January meeting is January 17th. It's pushed out one, everybody knows that, 1 week. So make sure they're aware of that. The Ben Franklin's birthday. Sure. Ben Franklin's birthday.
Auspicious.
Okay, I asked Lisa and Bob, I didn't learn that at the library today, I knew that before I took my tour today. To come give us an update on progress status, where things are. Yeah, I think that's gonna be better, Lisa,
it'll be on the
if you don't mind.
Yep, and maybe, well, sure. We adjourned.
No, that's not it.
Can I share? Yes. Thank you. All right, Lisa. So I know there's been a lot of progress and we hadn't had an update from you both in a while, so I thought we'd just welcome you back and see how you're doing. I had the good fortune today to take a tour, a 1-hour tour, and it's fantastic. I can't tell you how impressed that building is, we're all gonna be really proud of that final product. I will tell you that right now.
Certainly hope so.
We're walking over pallets and dust today, but
Yeah,
and it's okay.
Fewer than it was last week.
I would say was very, 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 very impressed. Am I the first person to take a photograph at the top of on the roof garden? Or the roof patio?
What answer would you like?
No?
It was the first.
The first person to the Board of Finance.
There you
Thank you so much for inviting us back for a visit. As you know, we love coming to talk to our biggest investor about this project, and especially when you've been to see today, how much progress that there has been. So I'm going to show you a little video. That was last November, so that's 13 months ago. So that was 13 months worth of work, which is pretty cool. So yes, today.
So they can't see this. Is that connected on the TV?
No.
Oh.
No, just because it's.
Not me, the video was great.
PhD's live, we're recording.
Yeah.
Oh, good, perfect. Okay, great. Okay. I'm glad anyone's gonna watch
So
it.
that was this morning. For those of you who haven't been on site, you haven't met Jillian, the woman in the picture, but she's actually the head of the entire project from Turner Construction. She's a 20-year veteran of Turner, and she is the project manager. She's in charge of currently over 100 workmen on site. And she and her right hand, a guy called Bob Buckley, the level of logistical planning and work that they do every single day to keep this project, such a big project, on time is quite extraordinary. It's an amazing skill set. So she is the person that has made it all happen on time and budget. So on that, everything is on time. As you know, we started last November 1st. We are expecting Turner to be finished on December 31st of this year. So for those of you who weren't there today, carpets being installed, I think, did you see it on every level? Should have been on every level.
I think so.
Yeah. So I was up there on Thursday last, and there was still only carpet on the top floor, so that's all gone in this week. The new crosswalk, and I saw that Tiger was on the call, so I don't know, Tiger, if you've seen it in person, but there's the new crosswalk, all built.
The whole street is beautiful. And the
Oh,
crosswalk.
Yeah, it's so much better, so much better. The stonework is almost finished on the inside, on the fireplace, and how cool that you had Fred Noyes on the tour today. So this is a replica of the fireplace in the house where he grew up. That is sad to
Wow.
Yeah, that was a treat.
So this is amazing to me because up until 3 days ago, this was completely full of scissor lifts and all manner of equipment. So they've cleaned it all out so they can start laying the flooring in there. So phase one, to get to the end of phase one, we're closing the current library this week, at the end of the week, and we start clean out. You won't be surprised to learn that 115 years of people who were very careful about throwing anything out means that it's a big job. We have been giving things away to our local schools. I think it was South School came with an enormous truck and took away lots of tables and chairs, small tables and chairs that can be used, and lots of other things for the library as well. So we continuing to work with every nonprofit in town, all the schools locally, and we're trying to go further afield to make sure that we rehome as much as possible. We should be moving into the new library, hopefully on the 10th January, pending a decision at the other end of the hallway tonight. We'll move into the new building. We'll be able to get all the books on the shelves, all the new workflows up and running and tested, and opening in early to middle February.
I did say to Lisa, it'd be great if we could do their budget meeting in the building, and so we would do it in the conference room, so you call that?
No, probably the auditorium.
Sorry, auditorium, yes, auditorium. But that would be great if we could pull that off and have that night's meeting here. So Tucker, we're gonna work on whatever logistics.
So yeah, pending the decision tonight, that should all go on. And then we start on phase two. So the first thing that happens, we turn over the Brew Clean building to the construction team. They start first with getting in the people who do the hazardous materials abatement. And then the demolition of the library additions, then the move of the original library onto its new foundations, then the site work, landscaping, and completion is targeted for October 15, 2023. And that's that.
Questions for Bob and Lisa?
You want to go over some numbers?
Sure.
Yeah, probably makes sense. Okay, because the one thing
Really
that,
why you're here.
yeah, exactly. I think the big news is we don't anticipate drawing down on the construction loan now to the end of February.
Wow.
And so here's the situation. We have 30 million in hard costs related to the actual build of the construction with Turner. We have 12 million still outstanding. But you know, that's on a cash basis. So we're now in roughly 5.3 million in cash positions, of which we're going to be paying 2 million to Turner as of the end of this month. We anticipate another $2 million plus invoice for December that we'll pay at the end of January. So that leaves us roughly 1.3 million for February. Now, we have another 500,000, a little bit more than 500,000 of other costs related to FF&E, and otherwise it will be ending up paying in January. So we would anticipate about $500,000 of capital left over based on the fundraising schedule going into February. So logically, we would come to you at the end of February with the first drawdown. And we were able to postpone this a little bit because we were able to accelerate over $1 million of future pledges into December. So that was the good news. So everything is still on schedule in terms of the total cost. The project on the GMP is now probably 80% plus complete. So there's really no surprises at this point in time. And we continue to fund whatever work associated with the legacy building out of our own back pocket. The one thing that I will note, and Chris had mentioned the other day, we have not received an executable copy of the actual agreements with town as of yet. Now, it's just a matter of sitting at some lawyer's desk or potentially just or selectman's desk. I don't know.
Signing.
Okay, so we haven't signed it yet. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
We should really get that signed.
Yeah.
Preferably before the end of the year.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think Kevin just said it's with him.
Yeah, it's all ready for us to get.
Yeah.
So as soon as Kevin does that, we will sign our stuff.
Yeah, but it's just, from our viewpoint, before the finance, we should make sure that that's ramped up.
Yeah.
Before the end of the year, it seems like a reasonable.
So that's pretty much the financials. So things are moving along as scheduled, and from a cash flow perspective, we'd anticipate probably, again, 4 or 5 months of drawdowns starting at the end of February, running probably to late spring. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Questions for Bob?
Bob, so the total amount is 42 million, is that right?
no, the total project cost is a little over 40 million,
Yeah,
30 million of hard costs,
right,
10 million of soft costs
Right.
relating to architect fees, FF&E,
right,
all the other project costs. So that's still intact.
yeah,
I think the confusion is, the total GMP is 30, we haven't paid it all off yet,
Right.
so that 12 included 2 towards the
oh,
GMP.
that's why I got the
Right.
42.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, that's right.
40, okay, that's why I was
Yeah.
wondering 40 versus.
No,
40.
so 40.
Still 40, okay.
Still
great.
40.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
So you said that you would draw into the spring. Bob, is that what you just said?
It's hard to anticipate exactly how the revenues are going to come in with respect to future pledges. We have drawn some of them forward. So, we continue to be actively fundraising, as you know, and there's still roughly a $5 million target out there.
So what
That's
does,
the remaining target.
Remaining target.
yeah, what does your spending line look like? Because you say your work is gonna be finished in October, so what's that spend line look like as it goes into the list of funds there?
Okay, so in phase 2, it tails off dramatically. And, we're going to, based on, and again, these are estimates. Only estimates from Turner Construction, because they have a model that they try and forecast how they're going to bill us. And right now they're having some issues with that, but roughly, I think in February and March, there'll be the largest drawdowns of north of 2 to somewhere between 2 and 3 million. And then it drops to $1 million, $1.5 million for 2 months. And then after that, it's hopefully de minimis, it'd be less than $1 million. Probably another month or 2 after that.
And how does the contract with the Simpson work?
It's within the GMP.
It's within the GMP, so it's managed by Turner?
Yes.
Okay, so, so you expect that to tail off and not have much into the late summer and early fall expenses, or
Correct. A lot of the spending cycle will be depending on with the landscaping will depend on weather, whether we do plantings in time, because the optimal time to plant would be clearly late spring into the summer and then into the fall. But if we miss that, that could hold up obviously some portion of the project. But as you know, the whole project is to be completed by the end of next year. So I think we have enough of a leeway here, assuming no unusual weather delays of any sort with the outdoor landscaping site work, that a bulk of that will be completed in spring. The other thing is, we start demolition, as Lisa mentioned, in February, late February, March, on phase 2. So we have to do surgical demolition now as opposed to major demolition without that. So that could hold us up a bit. Could be slower for sure.
How did the Design for Freedom project go in terms of raising awareness about forced labor inherent in the building materials? Did you find any trouble with the vendors because of that?
No, so I'll answer the first part of your question first and then circle back to the second part of your question. In terms of raising awareness, I think it's been amazing in that we have got national level coverage in the press, both mainstream press, library press. I've just been contacted by the Board of Massachusetts Library, State of Massachusetts Libraries Board, which oversees their, I guess, mainly municipals, building for libraries generally, specifically around this. They're really interested in understanding what we've done, how we've got on with it. We've also got some international awareness for the whole concept of Design for Freedom and eradicating forced labor from the built environment. On a small scale level, our exact project, we've done what we've promised to do, and we'll continue to do that, which is to shine a light on the problem and try to help grow awareness about it. We took a conservative tack with this because essentially Design for Freedom came to us very late in the piece when they approached us. So we were able to go out to a number of the vendors and make sure that we could trace those as far back as we could. But we're working on helping to set up what does the process look like, because this has never been done before. So we were never going to be able to say that we are the first slavery-free building. What we were going to be able to say is we're helping get over the start line for what it looks like to change the built environment by paying attention to where everything comes from. And we definitely have done that. We'll continue to do that long after the building is finished. We have a commitment to the Design for Freedom and the principles of Design for Freedom forever.
And that's kudos to you. By the way, Design for Freedom, as you know, is Grace Farms Foundation started that project about building awareness of slavery and human trafficking in the construction industry and architects. So they created a whole group to focus on that, and having the New Canaan Library partner with Grace Farms Foundation is a big deal in our hometown. So kudos for you doing that. And as you've heard from Lisa, it's raised a lot of awareness, which helps not only New Canaan Library, helps that Grace Farms Foundation, but more importantly, it helps fight this issue and raise awareness issue. It's very hard, like Lisa says, to trace back, in the construction industry to make sure it's slave free. It's so hard. It's a big project, but it's a start, right? And to have the first slave free building is going to take a little while. But with the New Canaan Library initiative and working with Great Farm Foundation, I think it's moving the ball forward. But thank you.
For sure, and I was on a conference call not long ago with a major university on the East Coast, who are potentially going to join the movement with their next project as well. And they wanted to speak, to us directly about our experience and what we achieved and what it looks like to be a partner here. So already other major projects, we will soon not be the only major project.
Right. But the great news is Grace Farms Foundation trying to do this worldwide. And the question asked is, are you going to do it in your hometown? The answer is yes. But we came out, so like I said, it's a.
Yeah.
But right, right,
right,
That's
right, right, yeah.
Did you have any vendors say, we're not going to do business with you, or we're not going to sell to you because we don't want to look into it?
Nope. But we didn't ask everybody to do everything. So there's, 100,000, if you look at every screw and every nut and every bolt, there's a lot of things that could be traced. So we didn't, at the stage we started with this, it wasn't feasible at all to try to trace every bolt. But no, we didn't. And I think part of that is Turner Construction. There are a lot of reasons this project is on budget and on time. And I showed you a picture of the foreman, who is one of the big reasons, but the other is they are so well respected in the field that every subcontractor wants to be on that job. and they will work hard to get the job, and then they work hard to get the next job by doing their job and being a good partner on site.
I'll tell you right now, they're gonna want photographs of that building on their websites when they're done. I will tell you right now, or not just Turner, everybody else, for sure.
Any guesstimate of the percentage of the building that's US materials?
I don't know that, but somebody will know that, and I will look into that. I think that's a great question. I mean, that, it's an interesting thing, right? Because if we're looking at, enslaved labor, well, then obviously sourcing things from countries where that is less common, I mean, we still do have a problem in this country, but not nearly like some of the other countries that mine product or mine ore and stuff like that. So by knowing that the country you're getting the materials from is less likely to have slavery, you certainly do.
The
Shortcut.
steel itself is sourced from Connecticut, as well as the stone, so two major components.
85%
All the stone,
Yeah,
all the
Connecticut-
stone is
is from Connecticut.
Steel in Connecticut.
So it's all recycled, 85% of the steel was recycled American steel, and the remainder was iron ore mined in this country and turned into steel here. So those are two
Huge component.
huge components.
questions.
Well, just one question is, it might not necessarily affect you, but it might affect what we need to do with the police station. How did the hedging of the steel work out?
First of all,
Really well.
yeah, we purchased the steel in advance, which we had to do roughly, I want to say 6 months before P and Z even approved the project. And had we not done that, obviously there would have been huge inflationary costs. But the key was that we saw there was an aftermarket for the steel. So had the project not gone forward, there was ability to recoup
So
probably half, if not 2/3 of the cost, we thought.
But having bought it in the futures market as opposed to cash market, how much money is supposed to save?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, we just essentially made a down payment on the
To
steel
hold an order.
to hold an order, and then they went out and hedged, the supplier.
Yeah, but you bought it at a fixed price of steel. You knew how much per ton. you
Right.
were gonna pay.
Right. So Turner has enormous resources
Yeah.
in terms of folks they could call upon, and they had multiple suppliers, and they had basically put it out for best bid.
So in an inflationary environment that they were facing a year ago, that was a very wise decision. It ended up being,
Yeah.
accrue some real benefits, financial benefits.
Well, I think the board did what you needed to do there too. Right? I think it was, give you confidence this is gonna happen. So that was great for you to think it through. And great job.
As I said today, the new building will be 60% less capacity to
Yeah,
energy than the old building, and plus 30% of that will be generated by solar.
So you didn't have me as your tour guide. So let me just make sure that we got that precisely right. So the building itself will be around about 60% less costly. Let's draw on energy. Because prices are going up.
Fuel and electricity.
that's good.
We don't use fuel oil in this building, so.
No, exactly.
Right, so but our total energy draw will be at about 60% of the total of the current building, and of that, at least 30% will be generated by solar.
Yeah.
It could be better. Everybody gives me very conservative estimates to manage my expectations, but it could be even better than that.
Yeah, and that was another variable that you decided to tack on and not move it for the staircase two was to do solar.
Correct.
And I think that what they did with it.
Yeah, that's right.
So you expect solar to be about 30%? Is that an estimate?
That's an estimate. That's based on modeling. That's
Alright.
based on one contractor who is the solar contractor, the same fellow you use here at town.
Okay.
He is working on all the engineering documents for the building. Obviously, we're not in and running the building yet, so he's taking all of their projections and their modeling, and then he's putting his modeling off their modeling, but that's what we've got today. But the building is so efficient in terms of design, insulation, the use of the glass spreading for the glare and the heat dissipation. The way that the building is sited on the piece of land to block sun from certain angles on other angles so there's so much that's gone into making this the most efficient building it could be.
Was the glass manufactured in the United States?
You sure? Yes,
That's beautiful.
it was. I'm not sure if every component that went into the glass was manufactured here.
Grace Farms got it from Germany, right? Or was it
No,
from-
we did.
Again, let me get back to you to make sure, I want to make sure I'm giving you the absolutely correct answer there, but we had to change glass manufacturers. Again, this is why working with Turner was so great. At a fairly late point, we had to switch glass manufacturers, and I know they're headquartered in the center of this country, and I'm pretty sure all the manufacturing happened in this country. The one thing I'm not positive about is in every component came from here.
What about the solar panels? Did they come from the US as well, or?
Yes. The reason is because the new bill, you know, the big, whatever the name of it is, the 7,000-page bill that they just passed.
Inflation Reduction Act.
Thank you. In order for us to take advantage of all of the financial benefits, we would have put solar on no matter what. But because of that bill, there are further benefits that accrue to us, so long as we're buying American-made solar panels.
Right.
That's a condition of that.
Well, look, unless there's anything else, we need to move on, but on budget. Pretty great job. The
Yeah.
product's gonna be amazing. I hope we can do our budget meeting there, but if not, we will do a meeting there. So we
We
can-
already put you in the schedule. We've already booked the room.
Okay, well, just read the video.
So we.
Yes,
Yeah, we're.
done,
Yeah.
done. Okay, very good. Very good. I think we'll have a big audience for the meeting. I think people will go. Yeah, that's exactly.
They're on board.
Anyway. fantastic
Great
job.
marking.
Minimize the drawdown.
Yeah.
Pay it back.
Doing best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the tour. First and only.
Dr. Gerber, you're on first.
What's it up first? Or
Dr.
Yeah,
Garber.
Dr. Gerber's first.
Garber.
So just as a reminder, we're, the board's asked for a little more of an update on the ARPA allocation. How are you? Good, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hi.
So over to you. Like I said, we have these ARPA funds and made these investments, and just on a periodic basis, we'll look for just how's it going, are there any costs that we foresee in the future? What's the plan and program, and we'll start with you.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I thrilled that to be back and to report on what's happened today and give you a little bit of an update on what's gone well, which I think is most everything, and then what we've learned and then starting to think already about the challenges ahead for next year.
For those who don't know, Dr. Andrew Gerber is the CEO of Silverville Hospital for the past 3 years.
My 4 years. I know, it's time flies during COVID. But I have to say, we've been involved in I've been involved in a lot of new projects since I got to Silver Hill 3 years ago, and this is the one I will tell everybody else, but this is the one I'm the most proud of.
Yeah.
Because this is something that grew out of a collaboration, and it's doing something that's different and better than almost any other community I know of, and directly helping people in our community, which is kind of, it's kind of why we do what we do, and why I'm here. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So we launched on July 7th. We intentionally did a bit of a soft launch over the summer to kind of work out the kinks. Since that time, and this is I'm reporting as of last week, we had 58 total phone calls into the system. Of those, 44 of the 58 were patients that then came to an in-person assessment. We always start with a phone conversation, want to engage people, hear what's going on, make sure we're the right place, make sure they're safe to come in. And in 44 out of 58 cases, they came in. In every single case, we offered them time within 48 hours. One of our goals, we hit that goal 100%. offered within 48 hours. And in almost every case, they came in. In a couple of cases, people either postponed or asked to come in a little later, and obviously we did that, but they all came within a few days. The assessment went to its, what we consider its full completion, which would be a total of 3 to 4 hours of comprehensive assessment in 3/4 of those cases. Every now and then somebody decided, I had enough, I'm done, I don't need your help after that, which of course is fine. But in most cases, that we saw it through the full way.
Is
That's
that
a-
straight 3 or 4 hours?
The first 2 to 3 is straight, because what we want to do right away is have a psychiatrist, a well-trained psychiatrist, do a full hour-long assessment, and then go into a social worker to figure out all the other things. What we then often do is we have them go home and we start calling around, because we need to make sure that that person, this assessment is just the first step of the process, that they have a warm handoff to the next stage. A warm handoff means we are making contact, we're talking to that clinician, we're making sure they have space, we're setting that appointment, we're talking to the patient, making sure they know where to go, and then we follow up afterwards to make sure that they went to that appointment and they got the care they wanted. That's what we did in 3/4 of those cases. The age range was kind of what we hoped, 11 to 82 years old. I'll show you in a little bit. There was a concentration. This will not surprise a lot of you, particularly those like me who have teenagers at home. The concentration was in the teenage years. We'll talk more about that. And there was a handful of cases from neighboring communities. So remember, the way we structured this was, if you come and you live in New Canaan, you don't pay anything. We'll try to bill your insurance, but your costs are covered. If you come from a non-New Canaan, we have availability, we'll do it, but you have to pay. And we had about 5 of those altogether.
What's the pricing for non-Canaan?
We started off at 1,500, and then we actually ended up lowering it to 1,200 because we were able to have a few economies there. But on the one hand, a small amount of money, but to get a high quality evaluation within 48 hours, for at least people.
But it's also a benefit, we're getting a benefit of 1,500 or 1,200 per person living in Canaan. That's really something.
That's what we're looking at.
That's
huge.
And that
I think
was our
that's-
goal.
right, that's huge.
Yeah,
Is the 10 a month, but 10 a month roughly, for the right period of time, 2, whatever, plus a week, is that accelerating? Was that?
So it's a good question. So certainly July and August were a little slower. It accelerated when kids went back to school in September, and I'll show you in the next slide a little bit about the age range. September, October started to slow down again after Thanksgiving. So one of the big things we're thinking about is how to best and most efficiently match our capacity with the number coming in. And this is a delicate balance, because on the one hand, we kind of have some fixed costs. In other words, if I'm going to set aside a psychiatrist for a day a week, which is the way I do it, he divides up the time during the week. That's the minimum I can set aside a psychiatrist. So I have that 5-slot capacity. And I like having 5 slots because it means I can get somebody in quickly. But we didn't fill all 5.
Sure.
And it's better that we had more, but this is where having a partner from another town would be a really wonderful thing. And this, Kevin's been saying this from the beginning, he's absolutely right, that we have the capacity really for another town our size and could still, it wouldn't cost us more.
Is this through November, the 58th? or
This is through November.
This is through, so we'll usually see what happens this.
Right, so it's been, it's funny, we had a little bit of slowdown after Thanksgiving. And then this week happens to be a busy week. I think we're gonna have 4 or 5 assessments this week. It's a little hard to predict, but a little more volume wouldn't be a bad thing. What's that? Yeah. Chuck, you wanna go to the next slide or?
Yep.
Thank you. So just to give you a sense of age range, that red, that's adolescents, 13 to 17 years old. Our number 1 referrer, the New Canaan Public School System. We work really closely with Susan Bliss, it's just been amazing. My team and she talk pretty much every day. And we know about kids she's worrying about, even if they haven't come to us yet, so we're ready when it's time. And so you can see out of about, what did I say, about 50-something total calls, about, close to 30 of those were adolescents. There were a few younger kids, that's in the dark blue. There were some young adults, that's in that 18 to 26 year range. And then there were some sort of 27 to 60-year-olds. We haven't had a ton of 60 plus, My theory is because Russ does such a fantastic job taking care of them, that they get treated before they come to us, but we've had a handful of those and we're proud of that. Next slide, Tucker.
So the adolescents that come in, do they come with a parent or they?
It varies, right? So it depends a little bit on their age and their developmental level. So from our perspective, the ideal situation is the parent comes because then they're there to support them, make sure they get to things. But we have had some kids who wanted to be more independent, and then we have to navigate that very tough region of, hey, you're a minor and we have to keep your parents informed, or you're old enough that there are some things you can do without your parents knowing. But obviously, if anything scary is going on, we're worried about your safety and so on, we do have to tell your parents. So, you know, we're good at navigating that. Both the psychiatrist who essentially runs this program, Dr. Penquay, and the social worker are both trained in child treatment. So they're very sensitive to those issues. And I have to say, in every single case that I know of, we've ended up persuading the young person to be in touch with their parents, which ultimately is in their best interests, unless something horrible is going on, which thankfully is not the case. All right, so what do people come with? You know, in my field, these numbers are very typical. The most common thing people come with is depression. Lots and lots of reasons for that. Anxiety is number 2. Mood dysregulation, which you see as the third biggest category, is what you hear a lot about. People have mood swings up and down. It could mean bipolar disorder, but it doesn't have to, particularly in young people. It can mean a lot of different things. Substance abuse is there, but a little lower. Again, this is an interesting question for someone like Paul Reinhardt. We've had conversations about this. I think sometimes that group is a little harder to surface. There's a lot of embarrassment. There's a lot of worry about talking about this. And so we'd like to see more of this come out. I also think we have some very good services in town. So I don't want to miss the possibility that we're addressing those. But my suspicion is there's more out there, that with more marketing, with more publicity, with getting out more to the pediatricians, we'll get more of it. And then relatively unusual, but we have seen a few cases of psychosis, which is one of the more severe lifelong illnesses. Sometimes presents early, particularly with a lot of cannabis use, and obviously needs a lot more follow-up.
What about like sleep disorders?
It's an interesting question. You have sleep is a common symptom in depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
So I don't have the number off the top of my head. The general in the field, we know something like 2/3 to 3/4 of people with depression and anxiety have sleep problems. In young people, though, it doesn't tend to be the primary problem. It tends to be the symptom of an underlying. In older people, sometimes that's the primary problem. We haven't seen a ton of that.
Okay, so it's part of the issue, got it.
It's part of depression.
So these numbers add up to 96%. What about the other 4%?
Great question.
I mean,
I can- Well, the first thing that's my slides. Problem, next. She clearly didn't do well on that.
We just want to talk to someone, they had no issues, right? Well,
0.4, not that wouldn't do it. Next slide, Tucker.
Any cases like bullying or anything?
You know, it's interesting, you know, in the older adolescents, we don't hear about that as much. That tends to be more a middle school thing. It's a very common symptom in middle school. And I don't know off the top of my head how many of the middle school age kids had it, but I would expect it's several. I mean, as you probably know, as parents and in school, bullying is such a complicated thing because, you know, on the one hand, it's good that it's now entered the vocabulary much more, and teachers and parents pointed out, but it's also gotten to the stage that it's sometimes hard to know exactly what it means. And now you have kids being accused of bullying who feel, wait a second, I was being a kid, and it's a very delicate issue for the schools. So, you know, I think our schools do a pretty good job, but when we see the kid having symptoms, that's really what we focus on.
How about the 2 private schools?
You know, we haven't seen from the private schools yet, and that's another interesting question. Is folks may remember I'm pretty connected at St. Luke's where my kids go, and I'm on the board. And you know, they recently expanded their mental health services significantly, partly after Teddy Balkind and a number of other stressors in the community. So I think they've so far been able to absorb it. So they do come to our meetings. We have periodic meetings to kind of talk with the community and hear what's going on. They're coming because I think they want to be ready in case they need us, but so far they haven't, and I don't know about.
To your point, there are other resources in town that may be absorbing some of this, it's not coming your way.
And we're happy for that.
Yeah, right.
We're just ready to take it. So you see it, this is where do people find out about it? Social media's been big, one of our biggest helps has been Moms of New Canaan. That Facebook group. It's New Canaan Moms, it's amazing, right? I mean, it's, when I need something, I ask my wife to post, right? Just, dads, we're just not as good at that, but we've had some really great advocates there, and in fact, we had a recent meeting where one of the moms online was just, she was, I mean, we could have been paying her. I mean, she's just such a support and getting the word out. So that's with social media is largely that. Town of New Canaan, we've had some contact with Bethany and the town. Referrals, schools have been the biggest referral, a little bit from primary care. It's one of the places we would like to see growth. I mean, we want to see growth because we don't want more people to need us, but we want to make sure the pediatricians, the internists, everybody in town knows about us and is comfortable sending to us. As we know, there's lots of great mental health providers. Sometimes they've sent to us, and then there's just been some people who contact us.
Police department, used it as their Instagram, they had a picture of the brochure, described it.
Very cool. Yeah, and I don't have police up there, but it's funny because I know I'm in touch with the police, so they must fit under one. I think that's probably under town.
And I also maybe announced a bunch of the conference.
Yeah, they've been one. Slide. So this, I mentioned this already. We've been very good about the timing. We've gotten back to people always within 24 hours. We then get the appointment. We've always offered something within 48, and as I said, 3/4 of them have been scheduled, and then the only ones where people wanted to push it out a little further, which we do. Outpatient providers recommended are all within 24 hours. So again, where there's no delay. This is what people have told us time and time again, and what was told, what was circulated when we first started. They said, when people want help, there's that window. And they reach out and they get told it's 5 weeks away, or nobody calls them back, or everybody's full. They get discouraged, they wait, the acute crisis passes, and then they don't get help. And that's really what we've addressed here. And then the follow-up, we always want them with somebody within 7 days. It's crucial to strike while the iron's hot. Next slide. And then really the last thing, I apologize for a bit of the eye chart here, but this is our accounting. And you want to be very transparent about it. You guys, we're incredibly generous with us. $250,000 was, I think, the right amount. And what we've spent so far is a little under half. That's about that 109,000. Where's that? Sorry. That's good. That's yeah. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Right. So we accounted for the 104. The total expenses was 92. So far, the largest chunk of that is the $25,000 for the psychiatrist, Dr. Penquay, the social worker, 21,000, program management, that's Susanna Lewis, who, as you know, has worked really, really hard to get the word out. She is coming back from maternity leave at the first week of January. We can't wait to have her back. We did have someone covering for her in the interim. So that position was filled. Obviously there's a degree of overhead given all the other support it got from the hospital fringe for the employees. We did have a consultant who we had hired initially. You guys met Brent, was it Blair McLaughlin, who had done this in other Connecticut towns, helped us figure out how we were going to make sure to build the insurance. The insurance didn't end up paying a ton, unfortunately, about $5,000. We are getting better at that, though, we think. Any of you have ever struggled with your insurance companies, particularly around mental health reimbursement? No, there's more reasons why they don't pay than you could ever come up with. But we're learning this, and I think we're doing better. And then there were some self-pay payments. The reason that number is low is because it just so happened that the people who from out of town, their insurance covered it. Most of it. That's why we only ended up having to collect 600. They kind of got lucky on that. And that's really it. So, you know, we're absorbing obviously some of it. That's part of our responsibility and being a member of this community. So $23,000 so far. We're happy to do that. We're on course, you know, to be able to carry through for the
Where's,
full
I'm sorry,
year.
where's your expense that you contributed?
So that bottom line that in the parentheses where it says
Oh, the
revenue
revenue
expenses,
minus- oh, I
23, that's, you know, that was the negative total for us, which we just absorbed. And so then, and you know, and then the real thing that we're focusing on now is the next year. I think the ideal situation would be we get a partner, because I think whether it's Darien or Wilton or Richfield or Weston, it would be, I think it would make the program stronger to have a partner. That said, I gotta give credit to Lauren Patterson and Kevin, who were starting to come up with contingency plans, raising some money. If we had more than one partner, we may want to expand the offering. And so we want to be ready for that as well. And you never know, the numbers may climb up during the year as word gets out. So we want to be ready.
The only one-time expense is that consultant.
Correct, that's right.
So that would repeat.
That would.
It was that money well spent or not?
I think it was. I mean, I think, you know, it's always hard to know what consultants, right? But, you know, we went into this, you know, not 100%. We hadn't done this particular project before, and having someone who had done it, I think provided some reassurance and some guidance along the way. So we got our consultant.
A run rate of 250 is an unusual, unlikely, although we guess the line can ramp up. Yeah, right, exactly. Right, okay.
But we talked to Darien, we've talked to Wilton, we've talked to Richfield, we're trying to talk to Weston. Talk to,
There's Norwalk.
nah, we don't want to get big, you know.
Big, it's big.
Yeah.
And it's a different payer mix, which is probably right.
Stanford Hospital has a psychiatric,
They do, they have a psych ER, and so does Norwalk. It's, you know, it's an error. It's not the same. And I think one of the things we heard consistently from the people who came to us saying, I don't want to go to the ER, but I will go to Silver Hill and do it.
Does the rest, do those other towns have anything? Does Wilton have anything?
Wilton claims their own staff person at their, you know, services department is doing a good job, qualified, like.
A lot of people have is, and I don't want to diminish this, but they have social workers who will go out, whether it's Kids in Crisis for the kids or 211 links to a bunch of other services. It's not the same level of assessment, and there's certainly not the same kind of handoff, but it's not.
Well, after a year, we'll see what they say.
Why do you mention the two 17-year-olds? We think
That's what I was
particularly crisis cases that,
Yeah, so in the last call, our psychiatrist presented just 2 examples of cases, and so I'm going to amalgamate because, you know, these are young people in the community, but people come with a range of things going on. And one of the most common things people come with these days is self-harm and suicidality. And, you know, they're not at the level that they made a suicide attempt, or else they probably would need to go straight to the emergency room. But people come with thinking about it and doing something that isn't fatal, but still damaging, like cutting. And so we've had several actually of those who come in and confide in us and talk about how depressed and anxious they are through a number of stressors, but not sure about where to go with this profound distress. So our job is to first assess and make sure we're not missing something, because you have to rule out all the other things that could be going on, and then making sure they get hooked up to a clinician in the community who they can then see regularly and is the right balance for them. And, you know, again, one of the things we used to hear is, well, there's nobody available. And that was, I believed, and I think we've been shown to be right, is a lot about, well, if you're a clinician in the community, you don't know somebody, you're much less likely to take them. But if they've now had a comprehensive assessment by a psychiatrist at Silver Hill, and they were calling because we think you'd be a good match for them, people are much more likely to do so, and that's what we found.
Yeah, once this program really gets out, it permeates to the, you know, the community. I have to think volume and trust will lift as well. So
But the school professionals that spoke about these cases said they absolutely 100% turn things around.
the superintendent is a huge fan. So the schools are benefiting the most. We may get the Wilton superintendent if we don't get the town. You know, I view this as kind of an investment in an assessment of our community. What kind of profile do we have as a town, as to how many problems, cases we have around town.
Right.
And that alone is a good thing to know. The Community Foundation 2 years ago focused on this whole area of mental health and try to come up with a framework to deal with it. So, you know, but quite honestly, we have to figure out how we're gonna fund the second year. I'd like to ask the superintendent to come up with some of the money in his budget. We can perhaps come up with hopefully a philanthropic component from the Community Foundation. We're working on that. But ideally, we get a second partner, whether it be Darien and Wilton, or Ridgefield or Westport. So,
Well, if I could just ask a question, maybe,
Go ahead, Tom.
which is, there's a lot of discussion about the significance of getting another community as a partner. And I'm wondering, Doctor, if you could share with us your view of how important is that? Is that existential, right? Is it absolutely necessary? Or do you think that the way you've kind of gone along this first year, you can just continue to do it in that way?
You know, I'm told, because whenever you add a partner, obviously there's more collaboration, there's more complexity to it. Listen, could we do a second year at this rate? Sure. And if the numbers tick up, I think there's some rationale for that. But realistically, I think I get it. $2,000 of run rate, that's a lot of money. And I think having a second partner takes some of that pressure off and makes it easier to sustain. I've no doubt you can make it work with a second partner. So I wouldn't say we should shut down if we can't get it, but I do hope we get it.
And would you assess that your experience in this first year will allow you to change in a meaningful way the dialogue you have with the neighboring communities, such that the conversation can be expected to have perhaps a different outcome? Or do we need to cast our net wider to other communities? I mean, I think there's a geographic limitation at some point.
I think you're making a great point, and I think one of the responses we got, I remember particularly in Darien, was uncertainty. You've never done this before. How do we know? And we now know, right? We've got the experience. So I do think it changes the conversation. As you know, other towns also have their pride and their ways of doing things. So there are some still obstacles there, but the uncertainty issue, I think, goes away once we have the data from the first year.
Thank you.
What's our clock? Is it July? What's the idea? July, okay, so this is a conversation you have to have.
But what if the money isn't used up by June? Can we extend the money or no? Or once?
Oh, you know how to use a year to spend it, they spend it whenever they, the 250? We gave them 250.
Right.
You don't have to spend it by June.
No,
The problem is the way we do it is we basically have to buy a piece of this Sakai.
Yeah, they-
So it ticks along unless we
So
stop.
done.
I guess it
We'll
should
be
be
done.
done. According to July,
Yeah, we'll spend it by.
We're spending, okay.
So in the budget, in the town section, I guess,
we're gonna put some money
Yeah.
outside and we're gonna encourage the
get
superintendent.
a partner.
Yeah.
The superintendent doesn't help, that's right pocket, left pocket.
Well, but still, I mean, if he's the primary beneficiary, you know, that they see the value of it, it's important.
I understand, I'm just giving you things in budget.
I,
You know,
I thought I told you there.
I don't even know.
CJ, what is the primary obstacle in the insurances? Because there isn't a general doctor making referral, it's a personal assessment,
Yeah.
or is it the whole gamut?
It's the system. So, you know, this is a longer conversation, but the, every insurance company, and some worse than others, have built in a number of obstacles to these kinds of reimbursements. And so we have a physician in every, so that's never the issue. The issue is always whether they feel it meets the criteria of an acute crisis. And they have a framework, and in some insurance companies, it's actually opaque. You can't even know what their criteria are to say this meets the standard. And I can tell you this from not quite this service, but from other services. Their standards are sometimes absurd, meaning you have to be almost ready to commit suicide in order to qualify for adequate treatment. And it is not like that in medical illnesses. So if you have a broken leg or you have a hurt arm, and that's actually a violation of federal law. There's a parity law on the books, the federal government, that says you can't discriminate against mental illness and addiction in ways that you don't have the same rules in medical. And you know, there's been a couple class action lawsuits now against major insurers around this. Essentially, the Department of Labor has not enforced parity, and the kind of universal agreement is it's a law in the books that have no enforcement at this point. So for us in the field, you know, we're used to this. We've seen this now for years, and we think it's pretty criminal. And when you hear about mental health in this country being bad, and suicide rates going up, and young people, you know, and then everybody says, well, I wonder why, or they say it's the pandemic, and yeah, it is the pandemic. But then I think, yeah, but there's something we could be doing about it. We could be holding insurance companies accountable for this, which we're not doing.
Well, look, you identified a risk or an opportunity in this community. You asked for the money, it in 5 months probably proved it was really, really needed, and it sounds like if it saved one of those lives, you just justified it. So the only question really is, how do we want to go forward? And we'll just figure that out in February, frankly. I mean, we'll talk it through, but it'd be nice if we get another town, just because I think it would be nice for that other town.
I think so.
So they probably didn't buy into it in July or August, they might buy into it now,
Yeah.
knowing what you just walked through.
Well, Kevin's on the trail of a couple of these, so let's see if we can get it.
Hold on. Any other questions? Tom or Bob, anybody? Oh, okay,
Great job.
thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for making this
No,
possible.
no, thank you. Great job. Russ?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Good to see you. Fellow Commissioner, thank you for all you do and your volunteer time. Health and Human Services. Yeah, so you go right to the next slide. I knew this was the Finance Committee, so I'm starting with finance numbers right off the bat, right? So as you recall, not only we talked about seed money for the telemedicine program, but we also said that Waveney would put up money as well and match the funds. So we have done that. We have board designated funds of 400,000 that we've set aside both for Waveney and also took the ARPA funds and put it in board designated funds, can only be used for that single purpose. Specifically on the ARPA side, it can only be used for New Canaanites and for residents of New Canaan. So today being yesterday, we've spent down 100,000 of our Waveney Life Cares money and about 80,000 of the ARPA funds. The ARPA grant for us ends in December of 2024. And whatever period of time, we're going to talk about a run rate in just a minute, but whatever period of time that is, we're going to continue. And our commitment and our target, where we're going to put all the resources and time and effort and energy into making sure that this program is self-sufficient by year 2. We thought that was key and important. We didn't want to keep coming back for money or grants. So that's where we started with second slide, please. Thank you. I just wanted, this is not an exhaustive list. This probably is about 30 pages long. All the people that we've been in touch with and contacted. It's impossible, you know how busy doctors are to spend 5 and 10 minutes with you. It's impossible for us to get a group of doctors together in one room and talk to it. So a lot of this has been one-on-one presentations to our physicians. Remember, telemedicine we already had up and operational. So those doctors reaching out to other doctors, those doctors adding more patients to it when they knew that we had the capabilities and the bandwidth to add more. But this gives you an idea of what we've done, you know, boots on the ground to market and meet with people. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I'm getting teed up for the next presentation.
That's okay. So let's talk about performance. So as of September 30th, which is the end of our fiscal year, we had 238 total registrations, of which 55 were New Canaan. Now going into this fiscal year, we had 5 people in New Canaan in the telemedicine program. We now have 55, we're 23% of our total. Our run rate, as we talk about it right now, since September 30th, you've seen some of the material that's been out in terms of the internet as well as advertising. Our run rate right now is averaging about 40 per week registrations, and 10 of those being New Canaan. So that's how we are enrolling people into our system.
That's 40 a month.
It is 40 a month
Going from smoke, yeah.
for New Canaan.
For the cameras, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Is that fully covered for the cane lights or no?
100% fully covered.
For the
Yeah.
cane lights?
If you're outside of New Canaan, our rate is, we talked about cost shifting, our rate is $5 per day.
Okay.
Okay, so it's about, it comes out to average about $150 per month if you're outside of New Canaan. So that's how we were going to get it in year two, Michael, to be self-sufficient, is have more people
So
outside. of New
$5
Canaan.
if I'm outside in Canaan,
If you're outside of New Canaan, it's $5 a day.
whether you use it or not, or it has.
Well, they use it. So a lot of the people just came back from heart surgery, just came back, but were hospitalized for COVID, for pneumonia. The doctor goes, I want this person on for 3 months. And we go to that individual and we say, look, you know, this is private pay. And the rate is $150 per month. And that's how we're using that revenue to make it self-sufficient in year two. But it's completely free to anyone in New Canaan.
Is there a duration on that for the cane lights? Is it only like 3 months or?
No, we are running it as long as we possibly run. I'm gonna get into some scenarios in just a moment. I think Michael, that'll address your question, but I will say someone that has COVID and then we're seeing like the 14th week, their blood pressure start going up, right? And they're having some vascular issues. Then you'll see the doctor go, they were hospitalized. We want telemedicine hooked up to them. We want to track them over the next 20 weeks to see if there's any change in condition. And change in condition is extremely important. If anyone's been in the hospital recently and got a hospital bill, I'm going to just show you how these numbers make a lot of sense. If you go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to give some real life examples. You know, we talked about children. Children are extremely important, and we backing Andrew and Silver Hill and everything that they're doing. We do have clientele who suffer from anxiety and depression, but we really focused and have focused on the 55 and older population. So this is a New Canaanite, so I haven't put enough information so that you're going to know who this is, but recent open heart surgery, COPD, congestive heart failure, had a heart attack, ovarian cancer. This is a very high risk person for being hospitalized, being in the emergency department, and using a lot of EMS services. They're on our telemedicine equipment. We noted a slight reduction in their oxygen levels, okay? And then that reduction dropped down to about 90%. The breathing, when we got on the phone, became labored, and the respirations became very fast. So we got them on the phone. We wanted to make sure that they hadn't put the pulse ox on their dog or somebody else or on their kid. We want to make sure that they're using it appropriately. And we found, in fact, that the person's inhaler was not working at all. So we called, our nurse reached out to the primary care physician. This is a partnership. We're not taking services away from the doctor. This is a partnership with their physician or their specialist. So we're able to get that person in for, I'm sorry, I'm looking for number two, I'm sorry, I apologize. This was an increase in weight, congestive heart failure, starting to take place, the oxygen level of 90%. We started to see that increase in weight because she changed her diet. And we continue to monitor. We got on the physician, we changed, doubled down on her diuretic. We continued to monitor her, which was very critical based upon chest heart failure starting to, the sac around your heart is starting to fill up full of fluid. She never had to leave home. We got blood work done at her home. We got a doctor's appointment done in terms of getting the x-ray. Her physician was up to date on everything. She did not have to go to the emergency department. Any one of these cases would have ended up in the emergency department and probably admitted. So crisis was averted for sure. And we stayed in close contact with the physician.
It would be, I don't know if you know this, but it would be interesting to know the cost of that set of steps,
Yeah.
$100. Cost of going to, not having that and having to go to the emergency room and then cascading all the other related things, not $100. Well, I mean, so I would be,
This is a $60,000 case.
it's a $60,000 case.
It's a $60,000
So
case.
that's I'm going. I mean,
Yeah.
And they're paying for 2 months, right? This is like $300. If they were not in Canaanite.
If they were not New Canaanites, they would have paid $300.
Versus $60,000.
That's correct.
That's apples.
That's my point.
Oh, yeah, no.
Well, they still had to pay for things that had to happen.
Well, we still,
There's some
the
medical
blood
care.
eggs, right, but those were covered by insurance.
Yeah, it's not, there's nothing.
So those are covered by insurance,
It's just
but
stunning. Think about
But just, I wanted to use this example because this is really, you can see the value
Right.
in keeping someone out of the emergency department, and keeping them out of the hospital. And I probably went over this and I apologize, the resident number 2 was the heart surgery, low oxygen, low O2 levels, blood pressure started to spike on her, and we caught it immediately. So this isn't someone that you have to sit back and you have to wait until they're coughing, they're wheezing. They get on the phone with their child and say, Mom, I think you need to go to the doctor. Then they call the doctor and the appointment sometime next week. This is an instantaneous pickup that we have. She just started to develop pneumonia. We got the chest x-ray on her. We pushed IV antibiotics, never had to go to the hospital, never had any follow-up. Wasn't hospitalized and is doing fine. So I just wanted to give just
That's
a
great.
little exactly.
You send a home, healthcare person, nurse to you to see her.
I can, in this example, if it was just blood work, I would send a phlebotomist over there to do the blood work and get the blood work turned around right away while I'm in touch with the doctor. And on the phone with them with what we're doing.
You went through the registers a day, every month and so forth. Well, how many calls do you get a month or a week?
Well, right now, well, there's 2 parts of it. As we talked about before, the registration
Yeah.
of 2, we're getting about 60 calls a week right now asking us to set up. So we're getting a little time lag. Of course, New Canaan comes first.
I mean, how many books like this where they're on and and the system?
I will have, we have about 4 to 6 crisis calls a day.
Those aren't people already in the system, those aren't.
I'm guessing they are.
I mean,
Well, they have our telemedicine device connected to them.
that's all they have.
That's all they have.
Therefore, they're in the system.
That's correct. They're in.
If they didn't even have that, and you had a crisis call, is that?
If it's a crisis call, there's not much I can do except call 911 because I don't have any of their beds online. I don't know who the primary
You
care
gotta
doctor
register,
is.
so you gotta register.
I've got a complete register.
4 calls a day.
That's a
of
lot.
registered, a pool of only 200 people.
Correct.
And again, the avoidance of very expensive solutions is real, right? That's.
So you came tonight, he was feeling okay, doesn't have pneumonia yet, and says, I just want to be honest, they registered, they get you equipment,
Correct.
and they're just on standby for how long can they use your
Well, look,
service?
depending upon, we'll work with the doctor. Sometimes the doctor says I want.
It's surgery. So they're.
I want, well, I'm just in anyone, I want their weight done first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? I want their blood pressure taken twice a day
Right.
because they're taking a blood pressure med here. I want to know immediately, did they stop taking their blood pressure medication? I don't want 2 days. I don't want when they start feeling a headache or feeling tired. The doctor wants to know immediately. So this is the information that we're providing them. We get to a point where we can tell them when they stop their medication. Right? Or they stop eating correctly, like someone with congestive heart failure that starts.
But what I'm saying
putting
is,
weight-
that has to be a live issue from the patient, and a patient who's worried about getting pneumonia, say, I just want to be registered, I want to be monitored.
Yes,
Doctor didn't say she has to do anything, or he has to do anything, can they just sign up?
absolutely. We do require them to give us a physician because if we get into that case,
Call.
then I need to have a doctor's order to what I'm going to do. So I make sure I have.
Right.
You'd be surprised how many people over the age of 65 in New Canaan that do not have a primary care physician.
Sure.
It's very sad, but it's absolutely true. So we help them find a physician and we register them and we get them. Then we have to go through all of the things in their medicine cabinet. What they've been prescribed 26 medications, some of them they take, some of them they stop taking. What supplements are they on? I mean, it is, to do it right, you have to do it right, right?
So you're not rejecting anyone?
Absolutely not,
Okay.
absolutely.
Have you enrolled that are just post-COVID? And in, different levels.
Yeah, so when a physician reach out to us, I would say that about 5 to 10%. And the only reason I say that, and I can't say succinctly, because someone can have pulmonary issues and maybe they had mild COVID symptoms, but they're concerned about something else. They're concerned about their blood pressure,
Or
secondary,
issues they already
other
have.
issues, cardiovascular. When you look at long COVID, just press the long COVID. There's a myriad of other side effects that you can have besides just pulmonary, as an example.
Yeah.
The last I want to get in that, and again, I don't want to leave as much time. This is state of the art for Connecticut, and I will have to say as a disclaimer, while our nurses are made in America, our chips are coming from Taiwan. I'm really sorry about that. I wish I could get our computer here, but I just, but anyway, we are, this is our institutional setting that we have set up right now. We'll have set up in mid-January of 2023. So if you're in our short-term rehab unit, that little device will have a complete monitoring system on you. You can talk to your physician, you can talk to your grandkids, you can talk to your daughter that's in California. If you're having anxiety, we have programs set up for anxiety for you. So all of this is real technology. You can get your nurse on the phone and be face-to-face, one-on-one with a nurse practitioner or advanced practice nurse. So Waveney Life Care, out of our dollar, will have that set up in our short-term rehab unit on 3 Farm Road in mid-January.
Right. So is there a setup cost? You said you have to inventory all the bills, but is there?
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't charge anyone that, New Canaan, we don't charge anyone outside. We don't charge anyone right now. There will come a time where there'll have to be a setup fee. This is getting very time consuming to go in and do it correctly.
Yeah.
Do it right.
That's what I thought, that under my.
Yeah.
That has to come in.
So return on investment, matched your dollars, won't ask for another dime.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a pretty good presentation.
Russ, you regard this as an extension of your existing home health care service?
We do, it's existing, but you also, as with the short-term rehab, it'll be an extension of people that just got out of the hospital. And we want to immediately catch a change in conditions, somebody that just.
And look, again, thanks for having the foresight to even put this on the table. I mean, that's, and I'm glad that you're able to do this tonight, to get the update, and some of this amazing.
I had so how are you gonna be self-sustaining, like right now, we're subsidizing stuff, what's gonna change that you self-sustaining over time?
What's going to change is we're going to get more people. We, as Kevin knows, I think some of you know, we run the nursing program for the town of Wilton.
Okay.
So that's all of our nurses. So the school nurses, sorry. Most of our physicians, when we started this program, were out of Sanford Hospital and Norwalk Hospital. Now that they know the capacity that we're building, that's where the $150 per month is going to come, and that's where it's going to allow us to sustain a year two. No, well, place where Medicare will pay. And this, again, this is getting really deep, like we're talking about, why doesn't Medicare Advantage pay your bills on time to us and the right amounts? Right now, a physician can bill for telemedicine as long as we have the device set up and there's incremental CPT codes that they can use to bill under Part B. So it gets really, complicated on top of how many minutes and whether it's the
But
first.
you pay the resident for the foreseeable future, they're not gonna be charged.
No.
Zero.
No.
150.
And when we get to the point where the complete 400 has been spent, we're still hopeful that we'll be generating enough profitability out of the other program that
To
we're
offset
going
the
to offset. We can do it because it's private pay. If it was in insurance, we'd have to bill the same amount to everybody.
Right.
So because it's private pay, it's different.
That's great.
Are there any other institutions in Connecticut that are doing a telemedicine program?
See, that's a great question. People define telemedicine and telehealth differently. Like if you go into the Yale system and you type in telehealth, telemedicine, it's a program that allows you to set up meetings or with your physician, right? So it takes your calendar and their calendar. That's what telehealth means to them. Exactly. But there are some systems north of here that are in the telemedicine business. But we're doing more of the remote patient monitoring in order to be able, you don't have to hit a button and say, I'd like to talk to somebody. We have the algorithm built in so that if we see a change in condition, we're going to alert you right away, and we're going to alert the physician right away.
This is actually a software package that you acquired.
It is.
Bob, or I don't know if Tom's still on or call, any questions for Russ?
No, I think it's great. Thanks for updating us on it. I think it sounds like a really good program.
All good
Russ, you
here.
do a great job. You know, my father-in-law obviously just passed and was a resident at Waveney, but you guys are just great.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for all.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you. Yep. Okay. All right, on to Mr. Brooks. Update on interest income. Bob, we saw this on the agenda, for, interest income. And asking Andrew to let us know how we're doing, where it's coming in.
Sure, I'm gonna share my screen if that's all right.
The numbers are good. Go back to work for that.
I can zoom in. Let's do that.
Andrew, would you
How's
mind
that?
sending this to me later too?
Sure, just this spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've done here is I've just put together numbers for this fiscal year so far. And I included our primary interest bearing accounts. We have many more accounts than this, but many of them do not earn interest. And so I simply just tabulated all the interest income we realized so far this year, as well as for our investment accounts at Janney and UBS. Some of these figures also include interest and dividends received from maturities or from treasuries that have matured. And those are not paid evenly every month. So that's why you're going to see fluctuations. Like Janney, there's a bunch of securities that paid out in October, but then don't pay for a few months. So some are on a quarterly cycle, some pay out just twice a year. Some pay out at ultimate maturity and don't pay in the intervening time. That usually that's shorter term securities. So I just wanted to share these figures. I also included for now some already realized interest for the month at Bankwell and UBS, but these figures will grow. But just to show that we're already, almost at where what we collected last month, and we're likely to far exceed this figure and exceed 100,000 this month. In terms of our portfolio sizes, what I've done here is you can see I've calculated the average monthly interest by account. We have the total year-to-date interest, again, fiscal year-to-date, the composition of the interest as a percentage. So you can see we earn most of our interest at Webster. But UBS is catching up quickly because, as you can see, we have ramped up our balances substantially at UBS. We actually at one point were over $40 million invested with UBS. But as we've entered the latter part of this quarter, in advance of tax collections, we needed to take some of that cash out and invest it, or I'm sorry, have it available to pay upcoming expenses. But we are planning to receive up to $10 million later this month in tax collections. We also historically receive anywhere between 38 million to 45 million in tax collections in January. So the goal will be to ramp up and purchase more securities as we get that additional cash, because obviously we won't need all that cash all up front. So the goal has been really to build out a ladder and have cash available when we truly need it. And so far it's worked smoothly. And you're going to be getting 7 million tomorrow morning from UBS of recently matured securities that I had invested in 3 months ago. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of zoom over here quickly just to show at UBS what the breakdown of that balance is. But you'll see that 7 million, this was recently matured treasuries. These are going back to Webster to pay some bills. And then we have a number of CDs that are in increments under 250,000 so that they're fully FDIC insured. And treasuries, which are back for the full faith and credit of the federal government. And then US agency securities. I've not, many of these are actually legacy ones from the last couple of years when we were really chasing yield. As you all know, during COVID pandemic, rates went to zero. The only yields that we could really capture were from US agency issued securities. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac securities that are fully backed. These are unfortunately averaging a lower rate of interest because at the time, banks were paying less than 10 basis points. Many of these are earning, 150 basis points, but obviously now in the new interest rate environment, they are lagging some of these newer investments, which are yielding, well north of 3 to 4% now. With the cash coming in next month, the goal will be to park that in assets bearing over 4% interest. And then I also showed Janney, we have a lot less money there. Again, a large legacy US agency portfolio that has been invested in over the last few years. So a lot of this money will be maturing in the next year or two. So the plan is to reinvest those sums in higher interest assets. Given the Fed's guidance that the terminal rate is likely now going to be somewhere north of 5%, there will be opportunity to reinvest these funds at higher rates. It is a bad idea to sell and switch now. As a general principle, we do not buy and sell and trade securities because you will realize losses because the value of these, the market value of these securities tends to drop as interest rates rise. But if you hold it through maturity, you get your entire principal back. You'll earn the yield that you had locked into. So we will not lose any money on this portfolio. We have never sold a security for a loss, and I do not intend to do so. In the 9 years I've been doing this. So, but the plan will be to reinvest once the funds become available. I'm in regular contact with our brokerage teams at UBS and Janney, and I literally get an alert from them the second cash becomes available, so we can immediately look at what their bond desk has to offer and capture the best rates. Obviously, I'm also paying attention to the Fed's interest rate hikes and meetings and trying to glean insights from where rates are heading, so that we don't lock our money up too long and then miss out on higher yields by waiting a little bit longer. So anyway, that's the overarching strategy in a nutshell. What I included here as well is just to kind of capture some of our main operating accounts, some of the current balances. Again, these balances are on their low side for the year, given that we're just before tax collection season. So we've been spending down our available cash. But you'll see that many of these checking accounts, unfortunately, do not earn interest. It has been, an ongoing conversation with finance, to do the best we can to try to pool that money in the Webster money market account. Unfortunately, it is our lowest bearing money market account. They've been unwilling to adjust the rate that they pay. It has come up substantially from a year ago where it was 0.1%, but still it is lagging, 3% that we're earning at Bankwell, and even more than that from some of these other investments. Obviously, treasuries are liquid, agencies are liquid. But for money market balances, the aim is to try to get that up to 4% with after tomorrow's rate hike. So I'm going to be having some phone calls and conversations at the how to do. They do not automatically increase these interest rates. It does require proactively reaching out to them and having
So why don't you tell Webster, we're gonna take the money out, put it in the bank or whatever else, and we can create.
So the only problem is finance pays a lot of our bills, all of our bills currently out of these checking accounts. So we do need the cash, somewhat available. Now, if there was a way to strategically time the money transfers, we could work towards that. But I think that, is, I don't want to speak for Ann, but I don't think that that's really something that can be done at this time, right?
No, right now I'm actually dismantling how we have things set up because we've got general fund commingled with proprietary funds. So I want to break them apart like the tax collector. That includes sewer and general fund. That should be separate. Then I can put them into other money markets or STIPs or overnights or things like that, or through Andrew. I'm funneling everything through to the pool cash. Right now we run 5 or 6 check runs a week out of different bank accounts. So I'm going to funnel them all through the pool cash so that then I can minimize the amount of cash being held at the other places. If there's sewer or anything like that, I'll keep both of their money in a money, or through Andrew, keep it in a money market or wherever to keep it protected, and then keep the general fund as the one that keeps
most of the money. So the Board of Ed and AP and payroll, I already set that up as a ZBA, so that money just comes in as needed, so I can
Yeah.
keep that. So I'm going through all these accounts because of how the system is set up, Eunice. I can't just automatically change it. I gotta change behind the scenes. Because otherwise I'll generate negative cash. So we are systematically going through each one to break it up and to protect. the
And
code.
that'll be flexibility to move money out of.
Yeah.
Webster, whether.
Yeah, then we'll have a better, we're also in the process of setting up ACH payments for check payments. So I can manage
Right.
the money going out the door and what is that float that's out there
Right.
that I need to keep in the pool cash. For check.
It's all checks right now.
Right, everything is checked, so we're going through, we're changing behind the scenes in Munis, and we have a conversion next week.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna start rolling out to vendors and everybody to get, ACH payments, so I can manage that cash better.
I have a bunch of questions, but I'm only gonna ask one.
Sure.
Third question. What's the budget for interest income? The three-part question,
For the current year, 500,000.
500,000.
For next year, I was talking to Josh,
What is next year? We talking about our budget for next year?
yeah, the upcoming budget process.
Right.
You're not interested in that?
Not yet. That's not the.
Okay,
The budget for this fiscal year is 500,000.
yes.
What are you projecting the income to be?
So, yeah, we're gonna be way over. Right now, we're not even through this month. So we have 5 full months and we're at 458,000. And again, this is, there might be a little, a few thousand extra dollars of interest from a few of the smaller accounts.
Checking $1 million, $1 million, $2 million.
I'm projecting at least $1 million.
It's gotta be more than interest rates are moving up. you're
So-
Right, the thing is, interest rates are moving up. There isn't a plan to lower rates in 2023. So assume, with those assumptions in mind, it's gonna be over $1 million. It could be 1.1, maybe 1.2. It really depends too on how much flexibility I get to invest this cash, right? Because I know that, Anne needs it for expenses. I want to be mindful of when she needs that cash available. So I can only go out as long as I can to ensure that the money is available. And obviously, the shorter I go out, I mean, it depends on how short, but a 1 month treasury pays less than a 3 month, which pays less than a 6 month. Really, the 6 month is the sweet spot right now in terms of yields. And then it starts to flatten out after that point.
What's the 6 month yield right now?
I should know that off the top of my head. It's more, it's over 4. Low 4s.
So that's.
So
Obviously, it's more.
the question, about third part of my question is what are we doing differently in terms of getting more pooling to get away from as many, if not all, non-interest bearing, extremely low interest bearing? I appreciate some of that might take some time. I understood your point on the US agency piece, but the rest of it,
When you grab one of these figures, though, I said at the end of the month or something, these are operating accounts, so they may fluctuate greatly during the month in terms of, right?
Right.
You feed their medical account $1 million a month, right? And it goes out the door that month, so.
Right.
When you look at these balances, they may not be representative of what's actually there on average during the month.
Right, and as I pool it all.
0 to 0. I mean, whether we fluctuate for $1 million, $5 million, or whatever. I'm troubled by any account. I mean, any account that has 0 interest.
Oh, so no.
Zero balance, the zero, right? Next question is why do the 0 balance if it has 0 interest? Right.
Well,
I was gonna say, so there's, what I included here is just kind of an illustration of your point, because I'm 100% in agreement. This is the full cash account. I did look at the last 5 months of statements. The balance never really drops below these levels, right? So we do have millions of dollars sitting in non-interest bearing, or this account gets 0.25%, and obviously that's nothing. Whereas, you're right,
I don't remember ever doing it this
no,
way.
I just.
When is this all changed?
What can we do?
Well, my thoughts on it is we're talking with Andrew, so in,
We finally have banks that are paying interest.
yeah.
That systematically take advantage of that beyond belief, right? So,
Trying to get all these things in place. So when you see the pool cash like that, and you see, say, 10 million, that 10 million does not belong to the general fund. That 10 million is sewer. That 10 million is. So I have to carve them out because we should not be investing those funds and putting it into the general fund when they actually belong to the proprietary fund. So they can go into their own investments to say, okay, sewer out of there could have $4 million in their capital reserve fund.
And where does that sit? Sewer, 4 million sits at what?
sits in this pool cash. We can pull that out and say, okay, now go to Jamie, and that's our excess. And let sewer earn its own interest, and that's protected, and try and minimize the other funds that flow into this. And what's happening is, because there's other funds that we pay all these multiple check runs, that's why you have to keep it. So in bringing them to one check run a week, we can get the other funds to minimize their balances and put them into either.
Yeah, you're
one
on,
fund,
you're
right?
on, so.
Then, and then what I can do is I'm hoping in January, February, once I have this solidified and start getting ACH, I want to build a cash flow to say, I know I need 3 million for Board of Ed payroll, I need, or 2 million, nearly 3 million. So a week, this is what my estimated expenses are. So I know I have 50 million
Right.
in January. And
You've
build
got
that cash
20
flow
that
to-
you've got spared for more or less for 5 months out of the.
Right,
That's-
and give it to Andrew and say, here's the points when I need the money, do what you need to do, but get it back to me in these points. So that's the plan we've been trying to figure out.
Urgency matters a little, because every month it ticks by is another 50 grand we make.
Yes,
So, you
Yes.
know, I think I just would impress upon this group that let's get some urgency to getting as much of that into earning something somewhere.
yeah,
Because
oh,
it
no,
is,
agreed,
yeah.
agreed.
um,
And trying to simplify, so we're not transferring money, we transfer so much money all over the place to cover different check runs. And we're.
I wouldn't want $5 to be in the sewer fund that makes interest for the sewer fund. If that's sitting on a $4 million balance,
I forget off the
it's
hand, right?
a lot.
It could be up to 3 or 4, and then you got,
But why would none of that interest ought to accrue to that fund? I wouldn't think that should be right in operating.
that should be its own, that's its own fund, so that interest has to stay with that fund.
I don't want, I know, we built it as a contingency for a problem, but it can now be a generator. It doesn't need to generate that kind of,
I'm assuming we could do an
Income.
agreement to say we can take it back. I don't, just because it's a proprietary, I don't know if that.
it's our money, it's the town, it's a taxpayer's money. It's not, you know, it's not anybody else's money. That income ought to come into the town as
Okay,
income.
let me just.
100, I mean, we can talk about it at a board, but I mean, there's no reason why that's generating interest income, just sitting cash over there earning nothing.
Right,
Right.
and
Oh my
I
God,
think
I mean-
Andy told me that about most of this 3 million sitting in the tax collector account is sewer
It's
fund
sewer.
dollars.
Yeah.
And it's really nothing, and I, you know, this is something I've been talking about for a while now.
Literally, it could be already
Correct.
4% somewhere. No one
That's
needs
what I would like to be doing.
And then Tiger's gonna tell us one day, we need to rebed the thing, and then we need $1 million. All right, well, we could go get that if we had to.
Yeah.
But that is super safe money. That needs to be earning a lot. But that money should come to the town.
But is there a statutory
You know what?
requirement to do the sewer fund?
Make sure because of the type of fund it is. The other ones, the internal service fund, all those, I can keep that money in the general fund and we can earn whatever we need and pull it in. But any proprietary funds, I'm not sure I can touch.
We had this discussion, it's old news, it's old information, it's probably maybe changed, but I know we left it because we had to, so.
Let me check again just to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it's
Yeah.
proprietary, then she's right, whatever they earn belongs to them.
You should belong to them. Then this is another.
It's not a governmental fund.
We don't need to have $5 in that fund. That
Well,
fund is
it's-
on us. No, but that fund is determined by the town to build as you know, for maintenance.
We built it
Well-
through taxes and usage fee through that fund.
So sorry for it, it's
I don't know.
Yeah.
We know it's overfunded on any
But more like,
kind of basis.
it's more like a rough month.
Yeah, we have to look at that one.
No,
Yeah.
it's a trust fund, you can't take money out.
Yeah. Let's look at it, and if so, it's earning that kind of return. I don't know where it says.
But there's no reason they can't earn a return within that fund.
Right.
So then that's what it-
But then it can offset another expense, isn't it? Offset from
Then
ten.
that fund becomes hugely overfunded.
It is. Well, I don't know. You never know until you have a big expense, but the point is that whatever income.
Right.
Should go to the taxpayers in one of two ways. It either ought to come out and go into the operating, or it ought to pay for the sewer side. So we don't have to tax the taxpayers on the sewer side. Either way, it ought to be generating income to offset costs, period. I mean, even within the sewer system is good enough because it's gonna offset that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just dismantling it, like say the tax collector account that was set up as ZBA, all the sewer money was going into the general fund and causing negative balances on the sewer. So I'm dismantling all those pieces
Okay.
between the tax or the cash side and the system side, so we can get it down.
It would be great if in January, February, keep having this conversation, we could find a way to earn about $1.5 million at least, given all the cash we get and when we get it, particularly to your point in January, we're gonna get a flood of cash. let's really be strategic about getting that earning and working for the taxpayers.
That is definitely my hope, but you know, this is like the commingled fund issue that Dan's been talking about. I mean, it's been going on for even before her time and
Okay.
it hasn't been rectified, and it makes it hard for me to project out.
Once
Do I
they're-
like three month treasuries, keep it one, 6 month treasury?
Tax season, then I have to change the system for the tax collector. I can't do it now. And then we'll have them down lower. Even the internal service fund, I'm gonna take back as a ZBA. So as the claims come in, they'll get covered by the general fund.
Mhm.
But they'll hold the liability that cash is owed to the general fund, so that we can earn more interest on that money as well.
Perfect, exactly. That's great. Okay.
So there's.
I think it's a reasonable target.
You think for this fiscal year,
Yeah.
over the next 6 months?
If you're at $1.1 million,
Thing.
you're at
$1 million
projecting $1 million.
in 6 months
Yeah, but you're projecting $1.1 million.
overall, including.
We're not even here with all this other cash in here.
I know, but I don't,
Short-term rates haven't picked up.
See what you can do. I mean,
will, if this can get resolved in the next month, but it's been several months and it hasn't gotten resolved, so my hands have been tied to be able to invest it.
Okay. Well,
I'd like to be able to invest it, but waiting. What?
You could pull the money out of Webster. They're
Right.
paying-
Well, we were supposed to transition out of Webster many months ago and it didn't happen, so we are already.
Well, tell them you leave it.
Because.
What?
Tell them we're leaving.
We have a place to
We have to get a place to
We,
go.
we should get a place to go.
I would like to pay the bills out of Webster, so my hands are tied.
Yeah, but you could play shuffle money, you know, you could send.
That's what I'd like to
You
do.
could go earn it at Bankwell and then when it's due. you
That's
shuffle it.
That's exactly what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, we still have to run the town.
We had a true cash flow to know what is when our ups and downs are, and that's what I'm trying to build, so we can say, and if I funnel it, I can say, here's where our needs, and I can say, Andrew, here you go, here's when the money comes in. Here's my timing of when I need the cash, and then he can go for it, and I can get all the ZBAs and.
But if we had
That's-
$300,000 this year, over what he's projecting, or then I'll still go get a low hanging fruit.
Yes,
Yes.
that's my point. You can't keep doing it the same way you're doing it and get $1.5 million. We gotta shake it up here. I think you're on. I don't think we need any.
I've been trying to, Todd. I've not been allowed to invest this money. I've wanted to for months now.
I hear you.
We would have reached those milestones if I had been given the leeway to do that work.
Okay.
So I would just appreciate understanding. It's not a lack of will or a lack of trying on my end. I'm doing the best I can to get that money invested, but I can't force hand to hand me the money to invest.
We need to pay the bills. We have the processes that we have. I got that. But if.
I mean, I've tried reaching out to you and having lots of calls with you to try to work through some of these things to get this money invested. So, you know, I understand you now want to get to 1.5 million, 3 times what was budgeted, and I'm
I'm
happy
gonna be
to
2
do
times.
that.
You already got to 2 times.
But my point is, I need these other pieces figured out before we can accomplish that.
But Andrew, as you know, we can't touch these pieces right now, because between now and the end of December, even though we don't know when those tax payments are gonna come in, I'm gonna need 7 million coming in, I need 10, we've only got 6 in the money market, we've got people in the pool tax that belong, so this stuff can't until the internal service fund I can pull money back on. Well, we've never done this level, so it's not that I'm not holding you up from doing it, we've just never done it to this level. And we're going to work that through and get these streamlined so you can invest the way you need to. But it's never been done in that capacity, and we haven't had a cash flow to say how to do it in that capacity. But
I
we
understand.
get there, we will get there. in
We've
the
been talking about uncoming legal funds for a while, so I think as soon as we're able to do
We
that, we
talked
can
about
proceed.
3 months, Andrew, because-
All right, look, we gotta get an audit done. We gotta run. the
Yeah.
town. I get it. There's a lot going on. But as I said, every month it takes 5. We miss an opportunity. Andrew, don't take it personally.
Yeah.
We have to figure it out together. I got it. And I think sounds like you have a track now where you want to go.
Yes. And
Whether it's at this point, December, January, February, you know, it can't be many more months than that. So
Right.
I think we agree, we want to, there's some urgency because it's just an opportunity for it. All right, now it's your question. What are you gonna budget next year? You must be so excited about this.
So the challenge of projecting that far into the future without a crystal ball is I don't know what the Fed is going to do. You know, if there is a significant recession in 2023, they're going to likely cut rates. That's going to impact, you know, the projections out. You know, I think we tentatively penciled in I want to say 700,000. I don't remember.
Well, I guess we could play parlor games all day. I don't know whether rates would go down. I think a safe assumption maybe you'll know a lot more in February than
Yes.
you do today, for sure, in March. Rates should stay the same, worst case scenario. Then you
Right.
can run over a million.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I think we can up that budget projection, but we'll have more data in hand.
Absolutely heading in the right direction. That's fantastic. So,
Yeah.
We were smart to budget conservatively.
Yeah.
We're gonna spend something on-
And the other thing is, we do have the library loan to think about. We are going to be earning a return on that. That's almost like an investment for the town, unless the town decides to go out and bond for it. But it may not make sense to, depending on what.
What
you
did you
charge.
find, what did they find aside? It's the interest rates from internally funded advances to what?
Not sure.
Sorry, say-
I think Ann gets to decide the rate.
What is the interest rate for internally funded advances?
The line of credit.
Because if it's outside funded through bond, it's the bond rate plus 25 bits. If it's internal, we said it was gonna be the 5-year.
5-year taxable bond rate plus the basis points for the quarter. That's what it would be based on each drawdown. So if they do 4 drawdowns, we're gonna do it on the day of those drawdowns.
That's very-
I'll call our advisor and find out what the taxable 5-year rate is.
So that's what was funny inside.
Yeah.
That was the one item that was
Up in the air.
subject to final clarification between the town and the library.
And I got clarified. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So it's, what was it? It was 5-day taxable,
No,
5-year.
5
Plus.
plus the.
Rob, any thoughts? I know you were part of the team on the banking. Any thoughts on the rates or, what we can?
Yeah, Andrew has done a great job. I mean, unfortunately, we're sort of, and this is not just New Canaan, but the world's still operating a bit as though it's in a zero interest rate world when we're now in a real, positive rate world. And it kind of goes back, we had the false start with JP Morgan around technology integration issues. But at some point, Webster, if they're not going to pay us interest on our sizable free checking balances, we should reconsider that as our primary banking relationship. I'm sure the finance team doesn't love to hear that, but that's, at least a threat to get some interest on those free balances. So, the world is moving. Obviously, we're going to be, I think, in a positive rate world for a while. And, it's real money on $6 million at, 3%. Do the math. I mean, it's real money to the taxpayer. So, the sewer fund, we've got to earn interest on that. Who gets that interest? That's above my pay grade, but it is absolutely a foregone, revenue that can pay for employees, et cetera. So anyway, no, I think I've been in touch with Andrew. He's doing a good job of building treasury ladders, not taking risk. And, the banks love to, earn spread on free money. That's how they make their money. Our job is to find ways to be more efficient and get them to pay interest or move. So
I heard 3 things. One, we got to find a way to get the sewer fund earning some interest income and getting it to use somewhere either there or elsewhere in the income.
Yeah, Jenny or any of those places.
Let's
that
get
can
some
pick that up,
interest,
yeah.
'cause that's very stable money. You don't use that. That's not a checking account. That's sitting there as a deferred maintenance. So it's literally a lump sum of money sitting there. Second thing I heard is you're trying to simplify the business best you can, which will help you consolidate funds and give you an opportunity to better predict cash flows out of the accounts you're ultimately going to land with. Which thirdly allows you to have some comfort to say, okay, I can put 5 million of this away or 6 million of this away for 90 days or for 6 months or whatever the case may be. Okay, those 3 things alone starts to move the needle in the right direction. If we're moving on that track, then I think that's good.
That's
If
exactly.
you need a meeting, my cell phone numbers have changed since 1998, I think, maybe 1990. I don't, it's right now. Here it is, fine, text. I don't manage this via email. It's impossible. So just so you know, if you want to meet, have a meeting, it's very easy to get that set up. Tucker knows how to set that up. Pam knows how to set it up. My secretary knows how to set it up. No one has a problem setting up meetings. I mean, just so you know, I know we have to be saying, don't feel like there's a barrier if you need something, but Ann works for Kevin. not me. And if we have to work things out, we gotta do that. But it sounds like you got the right track. So I think we all feel comfortable we're heading in the right direction. And everybody's done a really good job. And you're gonna crush the budget.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we are investing far more than we've ever actively invested before. In years past, the money market rates and CDs have generally been where the yield has been at. And now it's treasury. So we've been trying to really build that ladder out and take advantage. And I will say Bob has been a great sounding board for ideas, investment ideas. He's, you know, really been helpful. And I will say too, with our bonded debt at relatively low rates right now, we are in an opportunity to get some spread by investing this cash at higher rates than what we're paying our debt at. It's the first time we've been in that place since I've been in this job, so.
Maybe for many years.
Yeah,
I mean,
so this is definitely our opportunity.
any thoughts?
No, I think it sounds good. I'm just curious, and is there a way to find out from your spreadsheet what, like, if you use the average balance, what these things have earned all year in the separate accounts? I know you have, the balances keep going up and down, but if you can calculate an average balance and a rate, and then theoretically you can have a year to date, like what each of those things are.
If they're the Webster accounts, they're zero. Oh, yes.
Well, there's just that one account that says EDA, right? The DOE payroll.
Yeah,
account.
and we're about to set up another two.
Okay, so, but other accounts do have a consistent balance, you know, and it is obviously adjusting as money goes in and out, especially the checking accounts.
Yeah.
The money market account is relatively static. There's really money just kind of going in one direction out of it, because that's generally where all the tax collections get initially parked.
But if you go to your spreadsheet, right, if I look to the left of,
Any issue with this reading?
Sorry.
okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Keep in mind, I mean, everything we can do efficiently over the next, safely, over the next few months generates a number of millions of dollars of income that we don't have to tax the taxpayers for operations. So this is really important to get right for next year in this environment.
I guess if there's a way, we should be able to find out what you've earned at Webster year to date, right? You get your monthly interest.
That's what this, so this column is year-to-date earnings.
Yeah, but you'd have to divide it by the average balance. Find out the rate you're running on each of those. Right? So we don't know what rate
Oh,
we
right.
got.
Right, well, the thing is, the rates have been moving, right? So like this is
But
the
it's
current
the
rate.
average rate.
Right, yes, right. So you want to find out what the average rate is in on these accounts.
Yeah, have we been earning 3% or 5% or 1%? So
Yeah.
that's, and the only way to do it is to have an average balance. Right.
Yeah, so.
Webster's gonna be lower than 1.88 because it's been moving up.
That's right.
So-
Is there a new rate?
Right. Yeah.
2 months ago, it was 1.18.
That's hard to get a new one.
And tomorrow we get a new one, and I'm going to make another round of phone calls to see who's going to cooperate.
So Webster's probably about 1% average, my guess, if there's more than 1. Yeah, you're probably about 1.
Probably.
Yeah.
I had
Should be able to do that for all of them, okay? If you could find the average balance.
Yeah, the challenge is some of these banks, including Webster, don't make it really clear what their interest rates are at any given time. It's not in the bank statement.
But if it's year to date, all you do is you take the total interest collected year to date and you divide it by the average balance of the year and that's your rate.
Oh, I see, manually.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
3360, you know, you double.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I understand what you're saying.
Now to set up the program, yes, once it's set up, hopefully it's easier.
Right, right.
Well, great opportunity for sure. And thanks for getting us on the track of getting it better. Anybody, oh, was a question? Another question? Not sure the answer.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's fine.
Andrew, I did have one question. It referred to credit card revenue as a line. What is that?
So we have different credit cards for the taxes, park and recs, sewer taxes, and parking. I'm trying to think of all of them right now. And transfer station. So we're also in the process of trying to streamline that credit card coming in to set them up a ZBA's account as well. So that as soon as, you know, the cash comes in and cleared, we pull it so we can get it back to the general fund. The problem has been, because different funds are in the same credit card company. When you do a ZBA, you're pulling this fund's cash away from them and you're causing it's causing a negative cash balance on the books. So that's been the problem of trying to unmingle these accounts and separate them out so that when I do ZBAs, I'm not causing these cash balances to be negative on the books. That's been the issue. So we've addressed two, and I have two more to address, and then I can get them all set up as ZBAs directly into a pooled cash that can then get invested.
Okay, I just didn't understand the word revenue. Who's it revenue to?
Yeah, it's the town, basically the town and sewer are the two main ones, and parking.
So it comes in as revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
Fees.
fees, yeah, all different fees and taxes.
Okay, thank you.
Is that because as people pay their sewer bill with a credit card, we get a piece of the credit card company's revenue? I'm with Colin. I'm
No,
not
it's
sure I
their,
understand.
it's their actual, it's their bill. So if someone pays their tax bill, their house taxes on a credit card, we get the net, so we get the taxes and the company gets their fee. Same with sewer, if they pay their usage fee, parking, they pay their parking tickets, the company takes their percentage, it's added on to the bill to the
Oh.
person. They pay the fee, in most cases, they pay the fee and we get what we should be getting. Or we get the net and we pay part of the fee, a usage fee for the town, but we get our full gross revenues.
Because
Is that-
just to be clear, the town in that instance is receiving the payment. So the town is taking on the cost of receiving that payment. Whereas on the flip side, when we use our P cards, Chase is giving us 1.75% cash back on every dollar spent. And they're charging the merchants that we paid with the
Right.
card.
So it's revenues on our
That.
expenditures that we're getting a net back. Just like I would get if I used my credit card.
Right,
Okay.
the town pays a processing fee, on the usage of tax, on the credit card, and then the taxpayer pays a different, percentage.
Yeah, sorry, I spent 27 years at MasterCard, so I was trying to figure out who was getting with the money. Thank you.
Say, Call, I'm happy to talk to you about, because you do have a lot of experience with MasterCard and I have different ideas about card, using cards and putting spend on cards, so.
Sure, be happy to do.
Okay, anything else?
Not for me.
Interest? All right, awesome, great, thank you.
Thank you.
That's,
Yeah, we lost Mr. LeBrie. Oh, no, you're-
no, there is.
I know, you know what? On the corner, I saw somebody walk out of his mic. It was Michael.
Yeah, from the tablet, so, Chris, do you want me or do you want? Yeah. If anybody needs a copy, I have extra copies. Chris, do you want me to go through it or?
Yeah, why don't we go
okay.
through
Yeah.
the debt?
So, the committee, the debt committee met to start talking about the policy and
Yeah,
different
that
levels.
was Amy and Maria.
Maria and
And so what we did is we went back and looked at the 2018 policy had been written and we said, let's go through it, let's see how we have done relative to the benchmarks that we set. And let's look at the policy and see if there are any changes that we want to entertain at this time. So that's the background. Ann's gonna go through the actual deck very briefly because it's all pretty good historically. And it will set the stage for what we want to talk about on changes.
So the policy itself has financial ratios. There's 4 different types of financial ratios. It's page 5 of the policy. And it's the debt burden, debt per capita per capita income, and carrying charge.
Can you?
We didn't put it on the.
It was late and we don't have a way to do it, so that's why does it? Now I would have it.
Everybody has it on them.
Yeah, we're looking at it.
Yeah, but it's on the cameras.
Anybody else or you're all set?
I think we're all set.
So, I'm trying to think which one's the good parts. So on the policy, the main changes that were made, that was talked about was on page 5 of the.
No,
You don't want to go that one? You want the-
Go through that.
Okay. So the metrics was put together and Amy had done this a long time ago and Josh has updated it for us. What we took was the different financial ratios. We took the current debt as it stands right now, the actual debt for the next 5 years. And then we took everything that was on the 5-year capital plan and we put it in the format of when do we think we would bond versus when it's going to be authorized, because that's what's going to generate our debt expense. So with those numbers, we drop them into these categories. And as you can see, debt burden, it says not to exceed 1.25%. We had per capita not to exceed 125% of the rolling 5 years. Debt per capita not to exceed, the target was closed, not to exceed 8.5, and the carrying cost was not to exceed 15. But in that had a target of 11%. So I'll go to the slides first. The first, if we go to the net direct as a percentage of equalized land list. Page 5. Page 5. So the solid blocks are our actual debt right now. And the remaining ones on the right are the estimated if we bonded everything that's on the list right now. So based on this percentage, we want to keep it not to exceed 1.25%. And you can see the outer years on the right, it's gone above it. The main reason is the police station, because that's going to generate, because that's up with the 27 million. So based on how we think we're going to fund the police station, it's not going to be all 27 in 1 year. We've broken it up, but you can see that has a large impact. We have some larger projects out there. When we're going to bond for the elevators and the bathroom for Waveney, we have a possible firing range. So there's a couple of large items in there. The next slide is the debt per capita. Debt per capita was not to exceed, that was the rolling, not to exceed a ceiling of 125% of the rolling 5-year average. Again, you can see going out 25, 26, and 27, going out those years, we're generating it because of the police station. You're going to see this in pretty much all the slides, how we do it. Going on to the debt per capita income. That one is slightly better than the 6% is the target. The outer years come for that. Again, the barcode, the ones that are lined, horizontal lines are all estimated. The carrying charge is the one that was related mostly to the policy where they wanted to bring, or we wanted to bring it down to under 11%, not to exceed 15.
Yeah, let me make comments here on the board. So,
yeah.
The yellow line is the policy. So in every case, the policy has been met or we've done better. And so that's important because when we started out in 2018, you know, we wanted to get our hand around the debt level. And I think that the town has, and it's been pretty much a success story for all of these criteria. The debt per capita per income, which is really your capacity to pay, is really quite outstanding. That's the third chart. The last chart, so that was the percentage of debt service. And so the original target was 11% for the first 2 to 3 years, and then it was to ratchet down to 10% as a target. So that's the only one that in the last 2 years appears to be underperforming, but in fact, if we kept the number 11, we'd be performing. And the reason we had that pen is because there was some thought that if we really bent the curve on debt, we might be able to get the outstandings to a point where, as a percentage, we might be able to entertain that 10%. But a lot of things that occur, you know, we're constantly having new projects that we have to fund, and so so we're going to get to that. That's a ratio that needs to be looked at. So why don't you do the next 2 charts?
So the change in bonding thresholds, This one relates to the difference between what we bond and what we put into tax supported capital. Currently, our tax supported capital is 50,000 and below, we put into that category. Anything above 50,000 goes into the bonding threshold. So the committee was interested in to say, if we went from 51 to 75K, what would that mean in regards to taking it from the bonded section and putting it into the tax supported? And then also 51 to $100,000 if that threshold. So as you can see from these two columns, if we, based on the current request, if we move the threshold to 75,000, we take 600,000 from bonded debt and move it into tax supported capital. If we moved it to 100, we would move $1.4 million from bonded debt. And most of these projects are 10-year projects, and they move from bonded to tax supported. So we estimated out then what would that do to the bonded debt over a 10-year span, and then what that would do to the mill rate, shifting it over to a tax supported capital. So as you can see from the mill rate, the current one is 18.372. If you move the 600,000 back to a tax supported, it would go 18.439. And if it went to 100, it would be 18.531.
That is if we had done it last year.
Yes.
Right, and this is looking backwards.
Yes, this is if we took those projects that we put in 23.
Right.
But going forward, it wouldn't be the same issue, I would think. You got
Well, the other thing I would worry about is our mill rate would be greater than 1.14%. So if we add more to it, let's say our mill rate increase next year is 3%, it would go from 3 to 4, not 1 to 2. 1 to 2.
Oh,
look at
Pete, I don't think anyone's proposing this. I think this was just a math exercise. What would the impact be?
They wanted to know what, yes.
Oh, it's a good exercise. And by the way, is this the kind of added expense we want to have in a tough year?
Right.
Maybe no.
And if there's something down the road, we have cliffs. When we have the cliffs coming all from the different debt, 3-4 years, maybe after the police station is out.
I want to see the, I just want to see this.
Current policy still has $25,000.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
As a practical matter, it must have gotten changed because 50,000 is the operating.
I'm not sure we changed the policy or we just changed what we did.
We changed what we did.
Yeah. That's right.
What we're looking to do is change the policy. And the idea would be that if you whatever we decide to pay out of current taxes, we could do so by saying, look, whatever we actually are taking out of the general fund in order to balance taxes are actually being used to pay for these people projects.
That's all we got.
So that's one good way to look at it, and you kind of tell taxpayer, okay, these are things we have to do, rather than bond you for it, you've already paid us the taxes. We're gonna take some of this money and we're gonna pay for some of these capital projects. So, when the next document on the tablet is the current policy, and it's red line, and there are two changes that were recommended. The first is this, the first one, let's see.
Page 5.
Pages 5 and 6 are the only changes that follow. So on page 5, you see at the top of the page, paragraph 5C. We've written in 100,000 cost up to 95. So that's just the point for purposes of debate. All right. If we want to do that or not. The second change has to do with the ratios. So that is paragraph 7B, number Roman at 4. So the thinking here is when we originally wrote this policy, we had this we had 11% as the operating target. We have 15% as the absolute target. We have 11% as the operating target. But we were even more aggressive at the time and said, and we'd like to get to below 10 in 5 years. Well, as the chart illustrated, that's just going to be not possible to do everything that we have. So what we want to do is actually change the policy, just keep it at 11%. So 15% is the absolute level, not to exceed, and the working target level is 11%. And the reason for that is, I don't think we want to have a policy that we know from the outset for the next 3, 4, 5 years, we can't possibly meet. So we're better off having one where, we've been able to operate at successfully. And, even if it goes beyond it, we understand kind of why it's creeping up above 11%. And as long as we can pass the 15, which is the absolute level, that's kind of our corridor in which we can operate in terms of how much that is. So those are the two recommended changes to policy.
Well, I don't think we scheduled a vote for this. This was meant to
No.
still be discussion. So
Yeah, it's
you can if you want, but I just on the first one, you're proposing going to 100,000?
From 50.
Well, from 25.
Well, no, we've been operating last year.
We've been operating at 50. But the
The
policy was
policy was
25.
never changed.
The policy was never changed. We operated at 50, which I don't think was a bad idea, by the way. It was okay. But that puts a pretty heavy constraint on this. That's $1.5 million new
Yeah.
expense you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it might run that. I don't know why we want to do that.
Ian made the comment, these are 10-year projects.
Yeah.
You take like a vehicle, right? If you're gonna expense a vehicle in 1 year, $75,000, $65,000.
So 10 years.
Rather than vehicles for the last 10 years, the way we keep things, right?
Yeah.
So and we don't bond a 20-year note, bond for that, we issue a 10-year note.
Well, you're gonna absolutely keep your,
So you're amortizing the cost of that vehicle over 10 years.
which has to be the useful life.
That's my point.
Which is why. it's
The useful
10 years.
life,
Yeah.
the bond council divides all the stuff into useful life in terms of what tranches we are issuing, right? So, but I just don't, I don't see the value of writing off
Yeah.
10-year assets.
Yeah, the idea was
In 1
maybe
year.
going after some of the vehicles and saying police cruisers, other kinds of things. You know, why can't we,
Lawnmowers,
Why can't we what?
why can't we pay for them out
We
of
always can.
current capital?
We can.
I know.
We could,
We always can,
yeah.
but this makes us. And that's a risk because you end up absolutely inflecting potentially.
Yeah, well,
$1
you're.
million worth of incremental expense. What we did is we had a policy of 25 and we consciously went to 50 as an operating practice, frankly, which is not a bad idea. We could do any of the thing you just described, but to be locked into it on a policy, I don't know that we want our hands tied like that.
There's also.
Well, 25 is unrealistic. We
Well-
haven't been operating at it, we've ignored it. I don't think.
I don't know.
It's a little bit we ignored.
Leaving we're not, we're actually exceeding it, we're doing better. We're looking at it. No, we're not bonding at this goes, we're
We're
paying,
going a little high.
we went from 25 to 50, better.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my point. So we're doing that without being public. If you're proposing changing the policy to reflect what we've adopted as a group, that I don't have a problem with, but to double it from there, you lose me a little, I'm sorry.
I might add, Todd, just because I think the words on the page are important. It's not clear to me that we're locked into anything with this language. I mean, it's clear that even though we previously said 25 and we operated at 50 because we all thought that was prudent under the circumstance, that's all fine. The words on the page say should wherever possible. So it's an expression of intent. That's clear. Doesn't seem to me like it's a hard and fast ceiling above which we can never go.
I'm with you, and I think though, that would be a good reason to make it 50, because we've actually been doing
No,
it.
right. I'm saying, like most of these things, the words on the page will matter.
True.
Yeah, I just think it's nice that the policy
Yeah.
reflects what you're actually doing.
Well,
In spirit, I agree.
50 reflects what we're doing.
Should be 50,
50
we
is
agree to
like-
that, we've operated under those circumstances.
Let me ask a question. What is our goal? Why would we want to even consider increase it to 100,000, right? If what we just heard from Andrew is that we can bond at such a cheap rate and invest in interest at a higher rate, don't you want to go the other way now?
Yeah.
And bond more and expense less versus bonding less and expensing more? I'm just confused on why we were talking about possibly going up versus going down. Like, why don't we go down to 25,000 next year?
Well, I think, Michael, that's why it's written in a way that gives us flexibility to go in either direction, but obviously having a policy or having a guideline gives all of the departments, and Kevin and his team gives everybody an idea of what our expectations and plans will be under ordinary circumstances. And then we can all debate the what ifs and possibilities that might surround a particular
See, that makes
capital
sense.
item.
That makes sense, Tom. So the question is, why would we change the policy from 25 to 50 and making it more restrictive? when we might want to this year bond more than over 25.
Well, one
Not have a policy.
of the reasons this was even put in when we first wrote this in 19 is because I think in 19, we bonded all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was the shuttle and
I think it was meant to send a message of discipline around, but by the way, our debt has started, as you know, and dropped a lot. Not because we didn't bond for a car,
Right.
but the thinking was.
Right, but why would we restrict ourselves by increasing the pace from 25 to 50?
I think disciplined behavior and a loose policy is probably that's what it will rate it. And we've been
I think it's just simply sending a message to the departments that unless they've heard another message clearly from someone, this is the way they should be operating and thinking about a capital item. Right? I think we have the ability as the board, it would seem from the language on the page to go either up or down under the circumstances. But if somebody has a capital item and they want to know how to think about it, budget for it, such and so forth, this is what they should do.
Keep it at 25. I'm just saying, don't increase.
In other
it to
words, you're
50.
saying don't make any changes.
Right.
Leave it at 25.
Exactly. I'm just saying, leave it 25, give us the most flexibility.
Bob, thoughts or James, Victor?
I think, I mean, if we're essentially spending at 50, it'd be more indicative of what we're actually doing. So, I mean, there's something to be said about kind of reflecting what we're actually, the practice we're actually doing, so. And if we maintain the should in that, in the document, then it's still.
That's a discretion.
Right, so it's just the 50 more is more reflective of what we're.
But we might not do it this next year, so I'm saying, why should we have to do 50 next year?
But we don't have to, because it's sure.
No, but that's, don't change it from
Still should.
25 to 50. Say should maybe do 50, but keep the policy at 25, so we have ultimate flexibility, is what I'm saying.
Well, that's not a bad way to frame it, yeah, I mean,
That would
there's a big difference, though, if you start paying for all of your vehicles, I wouldn't do that, I mean,
Right.
a tractor, I mean, you know, a lawnmower, that's like a whole different.
correct,
But
that's what I'm
I
saying.
wouldn't go down that road,
Right.
no, that's a bridge too far for the town.
I think we've been disciplined for
Yeah,
that,
I do
now,
too.
but I think we also need the flexibility because our expenses going up, that flexibility response stuff. If we need to, so we don't have a bill rate go up.
You know, but we're gonna be careful, you know, it's, you can't be tempted into issuing a whole bunch of debt this year because the bonds rates are low. When we have $28 million of police station that we have to finance over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're gonna, I think the discipline says something we can. It says, yeah, you know, we recognize that now that things look pretty good here, and maybe we'll take advantage of this.
Which we have.
Which we have.
Yeah.
Which we have.
Yeah.
But we also are very cognizant of the fact that we have, you know, there's a big pig in this python and we have to digest.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so we can still bond stuff over 50 and not over 25, but why increase the policy and give us less flexibility? We could still go to, hey, and then over 50, we bond and down to 50 expense, but our policy to keep it what it's been at 25, so we have that option, that flexibility.
Right, but in an inflationary environment, what is 25 really buy?
I don't know.
Nothing. That's why I think 50.
Can't get a vehicle for 25.
You can't even get, you can't
There's certain vehicles you might want to.
You can get a grocery
shop. You want expensive, it's a 5-year life, why would you want expensive when you're a company?
Yeah.
Right? Why would you amortize it over 5 years?
But that's
I don't think we,
stay the course, I mean, when it comes to things like that, you don't just all of a sudden.
I mean, what did we buy?
There, yeah.
We would bond. That cost $25,000.
Oh, we had quite a few.
Oh, no, I remember we.
You may remember some things, they are pieces of equipment. I'm not sure they are in 25 anymore. Yeah.
Keep in mind that this is not just 25,000, it's also the useful life.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right.
My concern is
Well,
that we've seen a huge spike in interest rates, bigger than we've seen in the last 10 years. And I don't know what assumption did you use when you were calculating debt service as a percent of general fund expense? You estimated this out to fiscal year 29. Did you use the same interest rate? Did you assume interest rates were going to go up or?
We, it seems going up, but not large. I talked to our financial advisor, who gave me some rates, you know, best estimate rates for going out for that period of time. But they were increasing, they were dropping, so I don't think anything was above, I want to say 470 in the outer years.
So my concern is that interest rates are going to continue to increase, in which case, the more we bond, the more we're going to spend in. debt.
Well, you're talking about short-term rates are increasing, long-term rates are not increasing, long-term rates are lower than short-term rates, long-term rates. Especially 3.5, short-term rates are 4%, long-term rates, which is what we bought on, have not increased significantly, and are projected to increase significantly, it's the short-term rates you're talking about. Which is different than what we're borrowing, long-term rates. So that's why I'm not worried about it.
Let me mention two figures. You know, high water mark in the last 15 years, the outstanding debt was 147 million. And we're down to 110 million dollars. Second, when I asked Bill Lindsay, our financial advisor, what level of debt could we carry and maintain our AAA rating? He said 450 million.
It's irresponsible.
Yeah.
That's an irresponsible. It's your, he's right. That actually,
Yeah.
we checked this a couple of years ago. It's almost $500 million, which is so irresponsible. It's one of the expensive to be.
Come on, I mean, expensive.
He's right. No, with the debt and with the income in this town, that's exactly right.
Well, that's because of that burden.
And they try to pay the cost of carry over this, you know.
So.
But long.
Please don't. The second over occasion doesn't do that.
We're doing very well.
A lot of that reduction though is the high school. That's Little and Irwin's coming to an end,
Well, of
so
course, and
that's
we
why
have the
it's
big
where it
project
is,
now. We have some
that's
big
right.
project. We have the library.
It was
that
well-
already,
it's well
done,
yeah.
And we have now the police
Now
station,
it's the
so,
library.
okay, so every once in a while.
Once in a lifetime.
That's
yeah,
right.
Every once in a while,
That's
these
right.
big ticket items come and they're going to, be in your numbers,
Yeah.
over, 20 years.
And they.
Can I make a suggestion? I think Tom's point on the language is right. There's flexibility, so we can bond up and down the scale to the extent that we really want to, depending on the circumstances. I feel comfortable with that. That's really important to all of us, not to get us or some future Board of Finance locked into something that they're gonna constantly be in violation of. I don't have a problem going with 25 to 50, because that's what we've been doing. And it is close to reflecting, just like the 11% is what we've been doing. So I think that's actually trues things up a little bit with the flexibility anyway.
Well, we can't go down, right, at 50, we make that
No,
policy.
you can't go below 50.
You can't go, once we make 50, you don't have that flexibility anymore.
Whenever possible.
Well, I don't know, I read this.
I'm just reading the language.
Policy 50, right, you can't go below it, right?
Well, you really should.
Right,
That's
it's not much more.
That's not can. Look, I don't want to be cute about it. If you're saying we can't, then I'm off.
Yeah.
We gotta
I
go
think
back to
we can't. I
25.
think we have a policy, yeah, I think it's much.
Look, if that's the way it's read, that's not what.
Counselor, what do you think?
Counselor. Poor guy.
You're not gonna put me on the spot, are you, Chris? Well, look, right, the way I would read this is that it's an expression of intention. Yeah, we absolutely intend that this is the way it's gonna go, but we reserve to ourselves the right, under certain circumstances, with a majority vote of the support of the board, that we could go in a different direction or.
So we can go
exceed
down, you're
numbers.
saying,
Sure.
okay, you're saying that we increase it to 50,000, we can still bond below 50.
It gets to the definition of what's possible. And our answer may be, this town doesn't want to raise the mill rate any further. It's not possible for us to raise the mill rate any further than that. Therefore, we can't do this. That's not possible. And that'd be the example.
Would that work under the policy?
I mean, I think so. I don't know, Colin, what do you think?
I'm with you. I'm with you, Tom. This is meaningless. This is gobbledygook language. It's not legally binding.
Pay attention on this call.
Okay, Colin, go ahead.
I mean, the whole thing is, it's a policy, but we can, we're the town government. We're not bound, we're not acting ultra vires if we spend more money than a guideline. It's a guideline.
Yeah. I mean, we're already talking about possibly amending it.
Yeah, we review the.
We review.
Can I make a suggestion? Can I add the word guideline on C here, guideline limitation?
Yeah, well, that's not bad.
Well, the whole thing is-
Yeah.
Well, okay, fair enough. Then look, I'm just trying to help.
I mean, we're not voting on it tonight anyway, are we?
Maybe
No.
we should just put.
No, I just want to get it on the table. I think the requirement finding of our board or future board, and it literally mean, in this case, it's over a $1 million expense potentially next year
Yeah.
for operating. That's not an insignificant contribute. I'm not sure we want to, if there is a recession, that'd be nice not to have to do that. Now, the flip side is you can say, well, fine, then don't bond anything. Well, we need what we need, we need, so.
Well, look, maybe the thing to do for the next year or two until we review this is to stay with the written policy. And give yourself max flexibility in a period of.
One more year, that's actually.
For one more year, yeah.
It's my idea, and if you want the 11%,
No, the 11% was just striking
The rest.
the language about going to 10, because it's not realistic.
Yeah.
And we know it's not realistic, so why bind ourselves to a policy that we know which one is going to failure with it.
okay, so that would be the only potential change.
Okay.
All right, let's,
We could vote on.
well, we can do that, and, if you're okay, the January meeting.
Yeah, we can do it.
Okay, I do have one question on this is the page 8. The one thing I wanted to see was those bars without the projections of new debt.
Oh, we can send that around.
I want to see that. I'll tell you why. Because I think this board has to do one thing. I do think it's worth our time to look at 25, 6, 7, and 8 and ask ourselves a different question. What if we only bond X in 23, 4, 5? I'm telling you, Gordon, I think the last time I looked at this, there's a multi-million-dollar drop in our operating expense as a result of doing that.
Page 10.
That is the tax, that is a tax cut flag cover increased cost opportunity we have in our hands, and I think we need to watch
I
that.
think Ann has actually didn't put a bar form, but.
I didn't put it in bar form, I just put it dollar. On the last page, I showed the actual debt and the drop off on the right-hand side, and then below was just the estimated 5-year plan. Do you have that last one? This one here?
It's the back page.
It's the 5-year estimated.
It already got printed out. It's on your pad.
It's 10 of 10, but it's.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's that one, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the back page.
Yeah.
Flip the back, flip the whole thing.
And that's based on our capital projection, that's gonna be our debt system come down significantly, even without,
The top one is what our debt is, the actual, and what it would come down each year.
yeah.
And the bottom schedule is the actual debt on the left, but then
Oh, it's-
addition of whether.
This is it.
Yeah,
Right.
and then in working with Tiger, if I put when we would actually bond versus when it's being authorized.
This is literally what I wanted to see. So I think if we all look at this, our annual expense is $17 million, right? We see that this year, next year. Drops 2, drops another
Yeah.
4,
Yeah.
right? It starts to really drop. Now, I'm not saying, that would mean implying in those future years, you're not adding any. I get it. I totally get it. But what if we could get 17 and work it down to 15? Now, it's not gonna get to 11. It's not gonna get to.
Well,
That would imply-
this projection is, her projection, excuse me, is the estimated budget on column 3, which says it's going from 17 up to
18,
21.
of course, but look at the debt you're adding on.
Right.
I'm not adding, well, how, does anyone in this room agree we're adding $33 million?
No, it's not 30.
That's all of it, that's the police station.
There's a police station and some other things in there, yeah.
No, no,
Right,
no.
we-
We're not gonna have $107 million.
You get it, that's my point, so all I'm saying on this,
This is what. Amy
yeah,
said.
no worries.
No, because we have it somewhere. So you have.
No problem, no problem.
Everybody's put in, oh, we read this one, it's
No, I'm all in, I get
I
it.
always thought that was dangerous.
But our job is to think, what could we, this is the art, this is the conversation we really need to have, because I think if we really plan this out thoughtfully,
Right.
we can give ourselves a couple $1 million reduction in expense. That offsets increased cost somewhere else. All I'm trying to say is it's in our hands right here. And if we limit the number of millions of dollars to 14, just making that number up, that's a whole different conversation. Because we're paying off 17. So
Yeah.
we know we're gonna end up getting to a point where we're gonna have the benefit. I wanna have that debt conversation. It's probably not until February timeframe.
March.
But even March, but that's when we need to think hard about the next 2 or 3 years of debt, because it is literally our opportunity, the biggest
Right.
opportunity we have to avoid expense and either cut taxes or pay for increased expense.
Now, that kind of target is not in these.
No, I know.
And
We also have a revale coming up.
It's not real.
To this holiday.
It's just a working.
It's a working, it would be a great operating model to work from.
Yeah.
And it's really the next 2 to 3 years. And then we get the benefit of it. Then you can add more later if you're down in the lower levels, because you're never gonna get back to 18.
Well, we got a revale coming up next October 1.
It doesn't help me with that.
Yeah, what?
Revale.
Could help you with the mill rate thing.
Yes, cool, does that.
Yeah.
If all the rebound was changed from mill rate
Well,
which is an artificial number anyway. The real number is how much you have to raise in taxes.
that's it. What is my
That's the
tax
real
bill?
number.
My tax bill on my house, that's, and what do I have to
And
pay?
if we call that 16, or we call it 18, it's just by the virtue of what your house is.
If you're paying $10,000 now at 18, you pay 12 at 16, you happy that the mill rate went down?
No.
So,
That
Of
$2,000
course,
more.
so it's the amount we raise by taxation, it's exactly the right focus, but, and that's part of it, that's why I focus side of that one thing, this life, okay?
So that would bring that threshold of 100,000, 50,000, we were talking about up to 150,000, 200,000, wouldn't it?
Well, we just don't do it. No, you can't, I don't wanna squeeze the balloon and not bond it and then take it out of operating, it defeats, I think it'll defeat.
But you're talking about not borrowing money in the next 2 to 3 years.
Maybe not spending as much, that's exactly right, not bonding it, or we can't spend it, or I don't wanna tax them either for it. The exercise is this, how can we do, and I think I'm gonna have to make the number up without doing the exercise. How can we bond 14 million a year for 3 years, or 4 years, or even 13 million a year for 3 or 4 years? What would that do? When would we start benefiting from that? It's still a lot of bonding, by the way. It isn't about whether we do this shovel or that shovel. 13 million is a hard number for us to go at and stick with. But if we did, what would that mean? I think it's meaningful. I think it's gonna be very meaningful in terms of the amount of debt expense. That's the goal. If all I do is then still expend at the 17 million level, just tax everybody for the 3, that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and they've been talking along these lines now for years.
Yeah.
So this is just a refinement in our general philosophy,
Yeah.
which is try to don't issue more than you retire.
We did the town hall, we did the library, we've done the roads, we did the school. I mean, at some point we can say, can we take a breather and only borrow 13 million a year? How about that for a miracle? I'm telling you, it will be a meaningful impact to this town's, the taxes we pay in this town over that window of time, if we can think about that.
Especially.
It's hard decisions, it is, I get it, I mean.
Yeah,
it's-
but you know, we go into recession, it makes it easier, which, then you have to pull that up.
So,
But we have a big voice.
But that's already, yeah, that's,
No way.
yeah.
it's not easy, I get it, I totally get it. I think we need to know what it would take to do it and what it means, what the impact for all of us is. Now, we all you know the eye and say, okay, well, look, we have to do this, so we have to do that. But it'd be nice to know we could actually reduce our expense by a couple of $1 million by literally not cutting anything other than some spending. Bonded capital, I don't know. So.
It's intriguing.
Intriguing, okay. Anything else on that? Thank you all, that was great.
That's
That
a
was
good
we were due to that
Yeah.
upgrade, or upgrade.
Good.
Tiger, over to you.
Yeah.
We have, I think, you'll go through the items, but, a dump truck, the capital, the AC replacement, the expense on oil. And I think this team needs to understand what does Tiger need? And then where's the money going to come from? Is this a transfer? Do we need the money today? Do we need a special appropriation? I don't think we know yet. So I think we need to hear what we need to do, and then we have to figure out how we want to pay for it. So over to you, Tiger.
You're
You're
muted,
mute,
Tiger.
Tiger. We need to sign. We need a sign.
Only been 2 years, sorry. So the first item is, we have a dump truck in our budget for fiscal 22. It's a 2-wheel drive dump truck. The budget was $220,000. The price came in at $238,493. That's with a $5,000 cost comparison if they run into a problem as they're building the truck while they're procuring the materials. We feel that it's still going to come in at the $233,493. So we're looking at the fact that we need $13,500. We have money in our fiscal 23 2-wheel drive dump truck account, but I'm told I can't move that money over because it's 2 separate bonding situations. We are also selling one of the trucks at $9,300, and I'm going to get that money back. But in order to make the purchase right now, in order to then keep this number, I need $13,500. I can take it out of my operating, but then I'm going to need to get that back, if you follow me. It's this one here is an easy one because we have a way to utilize the money. I just don't know if I can utilize the money simply. And is that correct, Dan? That's the way I can describe it.
One fiscal year and put it into the other.
When we have capital items that we haven't spent the whole budget, those items can be carried over to other projects.
Only, no, we have to bond it first. So if there's excess, so if he bonded at 400,000 and only needed 350. And there was an authorized but unbonded amount, you can take that 50 and put it to that project.
Oh, we don't have any of that?
We bond in arrears, so we don't have, he doesn't have the capacity and authorization to do it. And you can't switch them from fiscal years. You can do it within the bucket in the same fiscal year, but not between. So we, I have an idea of where it's gonna come, that I can reimburse his fleet, but I would bring it to the next meeting, because I just need to true it up on some analysis I'm doing elsewhere, that we may have some additional funds required for use.
What about contingency?
Well, fine. I mean, why don't you come, if we talk, can you just wait till the
Well,
next
he
meeting?
can take it out of his, if he needs something now, he could do it out of his fleet, because he has it. Because I told him today that I actually am literally in the middle of analyzing some stuff that may free up funds, that will repay his fleet.
Okay, so well, that sounds like that's the solution. He does what he needs to do.
And I'll take
You
care of it.
figure out how you're gonna take care, come back to us and you're gonna answer the question
Yeah.
tonight that we can ask next month.
Yes,
Is this contingency? Can we transfer the funds? So forth, and special appropriation, same questions, but you'll have better data on what we can do there.
yeah.
I'm okay with that. No, that's fine. What difference is it? You okay with that, Tiger?
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I just needed a way to, to make to be able to tell Kevin that he can sign the paper. That's all.
But if you have to take it to two town bodies, that's what he can't sign. Right?
No, but
So why wouldn't we just take it out of contingency?
yeah, if worst case, we would take it out of contingency, but I don't think we need to. I just need
Right. In this instance, I have the monies. I just have them in different buckets. So we got to kind of make them work. So I wouldn't want to use contingency at this point because I have money. I just don't have them in the right buckets.
I think we entrust Ian to sort out
Yeah.
what you need to do, and come back to us, work this out. It sounds like you got it.
It sounds like Tiger needs to put the order through
Right.
in the next week or so. Is that correct, Tiger?
I'm sorry, I missed that, Chris.
It sounds like you need to put the order through in the next week or two in order to preserve this price.
That's correct. That's why I was looking for, just I was looking for verbal approval to say, go ahead and we'll figure out the money, that way I can tell Kevin he can sign it. I have, like I said, we have the money. I just have it in the wrong buckets.
You got it. Go for it.
Thank you. That one's perfect. That one was the easy one. They're gonna get a little harder. The next one we had the server, we had the AC unit in the town hall server room go down. As you probably have seen that we have a blower unit inside there trying to blow the heat out. That came to a total of $35,000 of unexpected expenditures that we were hoping that we could have reimbursed back into our buildings account from contingency. This was a capital item that we didn't have planned. It was only, the unit wasn't that old. And when it went down, it's hindering us a little bit on the rest of our work. And we're anticipating that later on in the year, we're gonna run into a problem.
Have you bought this AC unit?
We had to bring the unit back in again. We had money in our budget to cover it, but going forward, we know we're gonna start running into the red. So we're asking now to say, because of this one instance, can we utilize some additional funds out of contingency and make ourselves back whole?
What's the contingency fund? 300? Do we have, we haven't used any of it?
We haven't used any of it. No.
I mean, philosophically, I don't have a problem. Is it, you ever? No, I mean,
I'm fine.
That's why
That's
you have
what it's for.
contingency.
Literally, I mean, how was that one harder than the first one?
Because I'm asking for money. The other one, I didn't have to ask for money. I had money. So
I think this,
No, but yeah.
unless I'm missing something, it seems like the perfect thing to do. Yeah.
As long as you put the pickleball lights in soon. Tiger.
Yeah, I think, look, on the first one, there's nothing to vote on. Because
okay,
you're gonna sort it out.
Yeah,
And
I'll
we'll
bring it back.
come out, figure out how to pay for it. On the second one, this is a transfer you're asking for us to approve.
correct.
Did ask for one on the agenda item.
Yeah,
approval of a request, so.
on number 13 on this one. Yeah, okay, all right.
That's what I.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, so if everyone's agreed with the process, we can take a vote on it. I just want to make sure everyone's okay with the idea. Anything?
Well, that's what the contingency fund, right?
Yeah.
300,000 is for things like this, right?
Yeah.
No things can come up unexpectedly, right?
Yeah.
And that 300,000 is for all the departments, right? And nobody's used it in any department so far.
No, and it's a straight 300.
No, we're halfway through the year.
Yeah, that seems like a no
But
brainer.
less than half of the year.
All right, so, look, I think the separate conversations between this 10 and 11, so why don't we take it one at a time? A motion to approve the Tiger request to transfer $35,000 of funds to cover the town hall server room AC unit that failed.
Yeah.
Motion, Michael, second. Second, Chris. All in favor? Bob, you good? Tom? Yep. Opposed? You're opposed?
No.
Everyone confirmed, right?
I'm taking it down.
Unanimous. Okay, Tiger, that's good.
Thank you. The next is, you asked for a discussion on where we stand on our fuel oil, our gas, and our diesel. And we tried to give you an analysis of where we were on the original budgets for the year, what we anticipate right now being what our revised budget would be, and the amount of requests needed for each of the three items: fuel oil, diesel, and gas. We went through an unprecedented time where we normally contract out at least a year in advance for our gas and our diesel and our fuel oil. But we were told to, because of the volatility in the market, to not contract out, and a lot of people weren't even offering contracts at the time because they couldn't guarantee. So we were left going basically off the rack for the past 6 months, 5-6 months. And we're anticipating a shortfall of $297,000 in the end, based upon what we see for pricing and what we need for the amount of liquid that we need, the product that we need. We're also looking at the fact of a little bit of guidance going forward as far as what type of number or what type of percentage you'd like to see us carry in our 24 budget. Right now, we put a blanket 10% cost increase across the board for each of the three products. And the only reason we use 10% is because then it was known by everyone that we just put in 10%, and we don't have a firm number. Normally, every single year we've come to you, we've had a firm number for the year. We don't have a firm number. So we're looking at trying to get back on that cycle. The people that we were speaking to said it's getting close to the fact that we can actually start doing that, buying a contract, say, of a full year, meaning, right now we would be buying our gas for a year. And then in the summer, August, I'm sorry.
I'm saying you can't do it right now. You can't lock in the contracts.
I can't lock in the contract because I can lock in the contract. I don't have enough money to lock in a contract. That's my problem. I'm kind of in a, I can lock in a contract for say gasoline, which would be what we would be looking at buying now for the year, saying from January to December. So we'd get 6 months into the next year, and the price for gasoline right now is pretty good. So, we would be under contract for the next year. So whatever our unit was, normally you approve that unit. We just put that unit in our budget. But to get to that number for this year, I would need additional monies for this year to get us through this 6-month cycle for gas. I'm going to be in a similar situation for fuel oil and diesel. Since they jump price, they jump price pretty high for a while, then they're starting to come back down again and jumped a little bit. We're trying to estimate out the average price for the year to tell you exactly, and we're looking at the fact of how much product have we used, how much product are we going to need, and then what is the unit price to get us to that point? How much money have we expended now and how much money are we going to need? And based upon that, these are our estimates for the year at present. And then we're looking towards saying, can we try to get back on, we'd like to get back on a cycle now that the volatility is starting to come out of the market. We'd like to start getting back into the cycle of free buying so that we know exactly what our number would be going forward. Right now, this time of year, we would be buying gas. In summer, July and August, we'd be buying our diesel and our fuel oil. because it's the better time to buy those. So we would look, in the summertime to take care of the fuel oil and the diesel, but right now we'd be looking to try to contract in with the gas. So if we were able to get the monies that we need to carry through this year, we could contract in for that gas and then carry ourselves around, knowing that next year's budget would carry that revised unit price, whatever it might be. Like I said, at present, it's around $3 a gallon, which is a very good price, to be honest with you. So this is the situation that we're in. We understand that this is quite a bit of money, so we know exactly how to start the process. You asked for us to talk, and kind of bring you up to speed. This is where we are in the present day, and then our thoughts on how we'd like to move forward, and then predominantly how would we like to handle budgeting for the next fiscal year. Considering if we don't have a consistent price, how would you like us to handle that budgeting? We're locked in for electricity till December 2023. We're good on electricity for a while. We're just not on the rest.
So, Tiger, just a couple, and this is for a January action, right? Because I think you were still waiting, or you're thinking you want to get some more data.
Well, if we need a special appropriation, we have to.
Yes, okay, if that's the case, okay. And we wouldn't have necessarily the contingency fund. So let me ask you a couple of questions.
Before you
Yeah, sure.
jump in then, because Kevin had asked me to look through all the numbers, forecast, and see where we had anything for savings or is there any other line
Yeah.
for transferring it. And last night when I was going through some of the debt ones, I realized we're not bonding until March. Well, we're not going to close until March, which means we're not going to see that expense until next year in the estimates, which means what we estimated for this year is now free. Because we won't be using that debt. We're only going to hit actual. So that's about 240,000 right there that we could use towards his 290.
That's good to know. Okay.
What about the bond for the Playhouse? It's not going now till March, the one.
No. The bonding that we have to do for our projects from 23 and, the reimbursement, our regular capital bonding. We thought about September or November, but I told him the financial advisor, he goes, February, March would be better because the muni bonds will be more in demand at that timeline. So we shifted it to that timeline, and in doing that, our interest hits every 6 months, which means it won't hit until fiscal year 24. So what we budgeted as estimated interest for 6 months is now available in the 23 budget that could partly cover that. So
That could be a budget, that could be a transfer.
a budget.
Okay.
For that, a little bit out of contingency.
And you gotta cover it. That might be a good answer. Well, again, I still think it's probably then a January decision because we can't action that transfer now anyway.
No, but if he needed to, we know it's there, if he
Yeah.
needed to contact with
That's
something
good.
right now, if he doesn't want to lose.
Okay.
And I'm sorry it's so late, it literally was like
Okay.
yesterday.
Better late than never in that case. So a question for you, what is our budget for fuel oil, diesel and gas for the year? And what have we spent, I guess? Just trying to get to the root of the 297.
Our budget for the year for gas is $242,000. Our diesel is just under 95,000, and our fuel oil is 161.
Okay.
I don't have the present. We'd have to pull off of each department where we are. But our estimates based upon our product usage is telling us exactly where what our revised pricing would be. Given the fact of what the material costs are now, but the material costs that we were buying, we were forced to buy diesel at around $6 a gallon, which is at the ultimate high, but there's nothing we could do at that point.
Budget, when we finalize these numbers, which has to be kind of in the February, March timeframe, we voted on the budget obviously in May, but I don't think we changed anything. I don't know what the rates, how do the rates compare? What's gas, diesel and fuel oil today versus where you want to buy for compared to what we budgeted for at that rate, wherever that was called February, March.
Right. Well, that's the difficult point. That's why we typically try to pre-buy. So we're trying to buy a future each year. This year we were unable to, and that's why we're in the present situation that we're in. But we were, that's
why is that, Tiger? I'm confused. Was it
we were
buy
we were told to hold based upon the volatility in the market. A lot of people weren't even actually offering us futures at the time.
Did we not budget enough, or did we not buy enough? I'm confused.
We didn't budget enough. We didn't budget enough for our unit price. We didn't budget enough. Is what we didn't estimate that the numbers would go to the extremes that they've gone to at the time that we budgeted the amount of money that would cost us for heating oil and for diesel and gas. That's the problem. We under budgeted that unit price.
Sounds like we have an answer, potentially. We'll either do a special appropriation or some combination of a transfer and possibly something on a contingency. We can cover this, but it would be helpful for us to see if the budget was about 500,000, is what you just said for the three.
Yep.
At what rate per unit was that? At what rate per gallon? And then where are we today with the rate per gallon? See where we are, and just understand that. We can resolve that this item for item number 10 on our agenda. But I think we also have to answer the second half of your question, which is what do we want to do for this budget, right? You asked that question.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to be back in the same situation again.
We have to spend the money, but we have to plan for it. Okay.
Right. So we can come back and tell you, do a deeper dive on each one of the accounts, tell you exactly where we are as far as volume for each one. And then what our expected volume is and what we expect those rates to be, and try to dial it in a little bit better for you. Will that work?
I think we're okay with that. I think it's a January action, give some paths forward. Everybody okay?
Yeah, just a question for Tyler. So this is all the departments, right? That you're presenting here. It's your department, it's DPW, fire, police.
That's correct. We buy for everyone.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sorry,
Including Board of Ed?
Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, we buy for the Board of Ed also.
So they're included in this 297,000 cost overrun.
On some of for their vehicles, yes.
Their vehicles,
Is
yeah.
it just the buses, or is that all of
No.
the board fees?
We don't do
Buses
the
are propane.
Yeah, buses are propane, they do that on their own because they had, when they did the initial changeover, it was all part of a longer contract. What we do for them is supply them with gasoline and diesel for their, the white Suburbans you guys see around. Their special need buses, I guess they call them. They get their fuel from us for that.
And the heating fuel from the buy from you too?
They're all on natural gas now, except Westgold, and Westgold just converted to propane. So they're off on gas, and gas we're just buying market rate for right now. We don't have enough data to collectively go out and buy a future for natural gas right yet.
Okay, so not included in this memo is natural gas.
It is not.
Natural gas came back down. It's still
Yeah.
higher. Came back down.
Yeah, so that has to be part of your calculations and back versus where's the natural gas piece of this? Because you've got fuel oil, you've got gasoline, you've got diesel, but you also have natural gas, which is not accounted for.
When we took the natural gas, well, when we budgeted for the departments that went to natural gas, we held some of their numbers, got a little bit of data from last year, reduced some of the departments down based on with the data we had. And because natural gas was pretty much holding the same and it's down now, it's not really that bad. We're doing okay with the natural gas. I can't tell you tomorrow if it's going to change or a week. That's hard to tell. I mean, you can read a lot into what you hear on the news, but I'm not quite seeing it yet on the bills that are coming in.
Does natural gas allow you to buy forward or not?
You can, but there's different, we go through brokers on that and, there's a couple different philosophies on doing that. And one of it is how far out do you really want to buy? Right now, I don't think anybody's really selling any futures on the natural gas market right yet, unless they open it back up. It's just been too volatile. With the change of administration, we're hoping to see things after the election, but typically we do. This year we didn't. So I don't know what to tell you now.
I suppose the last question is, are there any steps we can take within various departments to reduce the level of consumption. For instance, does the police department still run all their cruisers all the time?
There's not much opportunity for that.
Yeah, I can't really answer for other departments. I could tell you on the buildings, we do, you know, we're trying to, we have a lot of buildings that are on the building maintenance, building management systems, which we do control setbacks and stuff on nighttime and what have you. We do our best on energy like that. The operations of every department has been pretty consistent year to year. I'm sure they're trying to cut back where they can. The buses at the school ball was a good example of that. You know, they went to propane, which they are saving more money on that. I know Tiger just made I believe they purchased some electric cars going forward. So we're trying to get there. Doing the best we can, and hopefully this market will start coming back down a little bit and get back to normal.
Bill,
So we need to keep moving along. Go ahead.
just a quick question, is there any savings or is it over year to date on the natural gas thing? What is that number that should be reflected in this?
I didn't put that into this equation because I backed all the natural gas out of this. This is just strictly, you know, liquid fuels products.
Yeah, but where are we year to date? I mean,
You mean, are we spending less?
Yeah, less.
I don't know.
Well,
Well, we are spending, yeah, so if you're looking at the unit cost, like when we did the police department, we've seen a pretty good savings, and that's actually in the budget where I was able to reduce their fuel line for next year. Because I had enough data to say, okay, I see the difference between when they're running on heating oil versus natural gas. So we reduced their budget for next year. For I think
natural
the question is there any savings this year that could offset this increase?
Or is
Again,
it
you don't have
increased?
you don't have the answer.
Yeah.
You know, it's a moving target, guys. It's really difficult. You know, I can, you know, I can't tell you. It's just the market's just so volatile. We've never ever seen diesel fuel and heating oil have such a spread between the two numbers. They usually run pretty much the same within a couple pennies of each other. We're seeing as much as the dollar difference between the products, pretty much the same. We don't know why. We don't know what's driving us out there. And I talk to our buyers and stuff, they can't figure it out either. And then you got the people selling future contracts out there who will sell you heating oil, but not diesel. Bill, look, I don't think we know. It's okay. Let's figure out. I don't know if there is a less expense in gas. That's the question. And was that factored into this estimate or not? Let's not guess. If there's savings over there, that's great. If not, we move on.
There's more money.
Just one comment, so if for liquid fuel, if we budgeted 500,000 and we need another 300,000 to get us through the 2022-2023 budget, it's a total of 800,000. That would be a good starting place for a forecast for the 2023-2024 budget.
That's just a question for you, Tiger, to think about, you know, knowing what you know about the prevailing rates. Is 800,000 a ballpark? Again, what did we spend in 2019, 2020? Don't know. Things are bouncing around so much.
Well, we're hoping that it wouldn't be at that high, but yeah, it would, you know, our anticipation was only go down from there.
Well, that's a February number you're looking for. You're not going to want that number in June. We can't budget in January.
No.
Yeah, okay. You will. So it's a good place to start. Okay. Okay, let's move on. It's getting late. And so, Tiger, are we good for this then? We'll cover it and
We'll
lock it
cover
down.
this one. Yeah, we're fine. We just
All right,
wanted to give we wanted to give you a heads up as to where we were and where we're trending. So.
That's great. That's perfect. Thank you. Got it.
All right, and this last item is another one that's straining our current operating budgets now. When we purchased the 220 Elm Street, it came along with a $11,495 charge per month for common charges, which totals $138,000, and those were unbudgeted expenses. So we're right now we're covering it underneath our building operations fees or our accounts, but this hit is going to be unsustainable for us. If you can imagine, it's almost going to wipe out one of the accounts. So the thought was that we needed funds to cover this unbudgeted expense. and how you wanted to handle that. We're, you know, we're open to suggestions. We're trying to save where we can on our side. Bill's been doing a good job on trying to do that. We've been talking to Ann about it. But we can't sustain a $12,000 a month for 12 months hit to our operating lines. We don't have that type of
We must have known that they were common charges.
Yeah, we were covered by the Gridiron rent until they moved out in July. And we just didn't budget in last year for this balance of this year.
So this is
So you
6
never
months.
replaced the tenant. I mean, you didn't.
We
sell
never
it.
intended, we knew the Board of Ed was gonna be renovating the space to occupy. We were actually thinking they could occupy it by February, and then we pushed that off.
Right.
We knew the police were gonna need it. So half of it is really the delay of the Board of Ed moving out beyond January.
Mhm.
And but we failed to budget for it.
Will this be in the Board of Ed budget for next year?
You know, part of this human charges is capital
Yeah.
for the future
Yeah.
to maintain that building. This is heating and landscaping and other things that are.
Yeah, it's the common charges.
Right.
I mean, the landlord of the second floor also has a tenant. So,
No.
But isn't he as landlord obliged to pay his insurance?
yeah, he's paying his stuff, yeah.
Well, this is discussion for January.
Right now, only two entities that are coming from.
Yeah.
Him and this other guy.
We still have floor.
Okay,
Where the funds come.
and this is a recurring item that's gonna come up every year.
Every month.
This is.
Every month.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it'll have to be budgeted next
so it
year.
really needs to, and they will.
Next year, next year, the Board of Ed will be covered.
Well, that's my question.
That's part of their rent to the
Yeah,
town.
right. But in the meantime.
They're gonna come here and ask us for the money to pay your rent, so I mean.
They're coming from $400,000 a year down to like 220 or something, so.
Well, plus the 138 then.
Plus the 138, so the 130 is included in there, and the debt service.
So it's included everywhere but this stub period.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
So this could be a contingency item.
Okay.
It could, and like I said, I'm cleaning up two more, I'm cleaning up two more funds. I may have one for that, and just don't want to guarantee it yet, like.
Okay, so same thing. You've got potential options. We'll have some options available to us, one of them being a contingency fund. We'll vote on this in January. Thanks for the heads up on that. When I don't think any of us were aware of that. That's disappointing. We'll figure it out. Okay. Tiger, anything else? I know those are the ones on the agenda.
no.
I feel like we solved two and punted two. We solved two. We'll solve the other two. We'll just get to January. Ann's gonna.
Decent time.
Yeah, okay. All right, just for the sake of time, I don't see any reason to go through the financial update. I have a printed copy. Everyone has it on their tablets. If you're okay with it, unless there's anything you want to shout out, I would just say we'll pick it up in January. There's nothing. We can look at it. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. All right. So on the line item transfers,
Oh, they're all just reviewed.
you know both?
Yeah, no
Okay.
votes, they're all
All right.
reviews.
Okay, and then did you want to say anything you want to shout out? Again, you have them. Singles and doubles.
No, they're not major ones.
Okay.
No, we're good.
Okay, same thing. If anyone has any questions, you can reach back out to me. I think they look pretty straightforward. That's the end of our regular agenda. We do have an executive session discussion, so Tucker, you ready to?
Yeah, you just need to make a motion to your.
Here, he should stay in the executive session, Tiger should stay. And Bill, probably not. Tigers.
Tiger's here. We can excuse Bill. Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Nate.
Tucker,
Carl.
or Andrew, you're good. You go.
Good, say bye.
We're good. You go. Thank you. Thank you.
That would turn into executive session.
I just
Yeah.
want to make sure
Dan should say,
Of course, we should. Do we have any other people who want to invite before we shut them on? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn. Executive session. Drinking, jumpy, we have to jump.
Who made the motion?
I need a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Victor?
Victor, second James, all in favor? I oppose and done, okay.
All right, just gotta give me a minute.
Steve, yeah, we need Steve, he knows,
I know.
he's coming, he's just getting paid for it.
Why don't you come here?
All right, hold on, though, please.
Doctor, please confirm.
There we go.
Victor.
At 2:30.
Okay, motion to adjourn? Chris? Victor, okay, all in favor? Merry Christmas, everyone, thank you so much. We all done. Communications.
Happy holidays.
Okay.
Bye.
Am I gonna see you? Maybe.